Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to the JESS MARSHALL Podcast. I have Sarah Lamb on the podcast today. I think you're going to really enjoy it. She is a commercial realtor and an emerging political figure here on the Dallas, Texas political scene, representing the Republican Party. She ran this last November, and she and I have been working on a time to get her on the podcast. Since then, I think you're really going to enjoy this podcast. You might wonder, who is this guy talking to me? I'm JESS MARSHALL. This is the JESS MARSHALL Podcast. I'm a restoration contractor and a real estate developer, and I started this podcast so that I could sit down with people like Sarah who are living their lives in a passionate DIY way. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the JESS MARSHALL Podcast. Wow. Mark that else. Swipe. Bring it.
There's no let's do 2 or 3 or 4 dates to see if there's a connection. It's, within 10 minutes, it's on to the next because everybody's just available either in DMs or on apps or the swipe of a...
Yeah, I guess we all can get a hold of each other, and we can be gotten a hold of if we want to be gotten a hold of.
Are we rolling right now?
We are now.
Okay.
That's a weird deal. I was talking to another guest a couple months ago about the whole dating and apps, and people will be like, well, you just can't meet anyone at the grocery store anymore because no one even goes to the grocery store.
Oh my gosh.
Everything gets delivered. And I was like, well, I mean, Home Depot doesn't home deliver. Maybe you can meet people there.
Well, I still go to the grocery store. There's some holdouts there.
$100 for 2 bags of groceries and no protein.
No kidding. That's what I said. It's true. It's true. It's tough times out there.
Yeah, it is. Eggs are expensive. Did you see it's either AI or somebody's just trolling the hell out of everybody saying that eggs are causing all these strokes and all these athletes?
When it comes to, not the COVID vaccine.
Right. The bioavailable proteins in eggs, in whole eggs are, It's an interesting deal. I don't know.
Here I thought it was the cholesterol. We keep shifting on the narrative.
Well, yeah, eggs, because for a long time, even when I was playing ball, it was, you're going to eat eggs. You can only eat the egg white. Mm-hmm. And you're like, now egg is the perfect food, the most perfect
protein,
food on the planet.
And until recently, it was affordable. Yeah.
Now you could literally be an egg dealer and just roll the farm truck up into the corner of Walmart and be like, I got a dozen here for you, but it's $60.
And to think breakfast used to be our most affordable meal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dallas brunch has never been our most affordable meal, though.
No. You throw in some alcohol there.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the. I don't think if you were gonna do a social media first date, you could do. I don't think brunch is the way to meet that person.
I think coffee is the best investment of your time and resources. If a girl will allow just a coffee date.
Just a coffee. I think they should, because a full-on dinner, especially if it's a nice place, you literally can't get out of an appetizer, entree, dessert, dinner under 2 hours. The waiter won't allow it.
Or under $200 too.
Yeah, unless you don't drink. But have you ever noticed that? Can I bring you guys a cocktail, some wine? No, I'll just have a club soda. The deflation in the waiter's face is noticeable.
Yes, absolutely.
And you're like, I'm sorry, dude. It's more about the fitness than anything.
Well,
it's not you, man. It's me.
Well, and then coming out of COVID, the restaurants were in such high demand. People are ready to socialize again and get back to restaurants. So now you'll see in Dallas, a few restaurants will actually indicate when you make the reservation and then again when you sit down that this table is only reserved to you for 90 minutes. So
really? Mm-hmm. That's a thing?
That is a thing.
I guess I'm lost in the burbs too much.
I guess so. Where do you live?
Frisco.
Okay, that's a great area.
Frisco's awesome.
You're about to get the PGA out there.
Apparently, and Universal Studios.
Universal Studios, which we were talking about in commercial real estate the other day. That is the best kept commercial real estate secret. Nobody had any idea that was coming.
It's supposed to go at Cotton Gin and the Tollway, right? So right north of where all the Cowboys stuff is. Yep. So Jerry owned that land too and sold it to them.
I believe so.
Or maybe it's on a long-term lease.
Knowing Jerry, that's probably a long-term lease, right?
Jerry.
I think in the perfect world, not speaking for Jerry, and I don't have any insight here, I think he would like to see the Cowboys move to Frisco.
Wow. They're running out of room, though, because the lake is right there. Where would they put the new Jerry World?
That's a good question. I mean, he's got a lot going on with the Star. He's got a lot of infrastructure there.
That's an understatement. Mm-hmm. I don't know where they'd play up there. By then, I think GPT will be calling the games, and holograms will be playing. So they won't even need a stadium. They'll just play
Just outsource everything.
on the computer. Yeah, you just have hologram Dak throwing a hologram interception.
Now, do you think that actually means we'll win?
I don't know. Are you a Cowboys fan, even though you're not from here?
I am. So
That's a very wise answer.
I am a loyal Texan. I got here as fast as I could. I'll tell you that.
Me too.
But
I'm not from here either.
It was definitely an interesting text group chat with my family back in California because they all still live there, and there was definitely houses divided between the 49ers and the Cowboys last weekend.
The coolest thing about because I hate both teams. I'm a Seahawks fan, so we hate the 49ers. The 49ers hate us. But the coolest thing about a Cowboys 49ers game is the uniforms.
Oh, yes.
Because those are like maybe the two most iconic uniforms in the league.
Oh, I mean, and remember, what is it, like 2 decades ago, how great that rivalry was, right? I mean, you had all-stars on both sides, and every game was just, down to the second.
Before that Tampa win, the last road playoff win the Cowboys had was 22 years ago, like 2 weeks ago.
I know.
Because Joe Buck is talking to Troy like they're buddies. They're good, but I often feel like Troy is fake laughing at Joe's jokes. You know what I mean?
To a degree, yes.
It's one of those deals. Troy's great. That was very unexpected for all of us, having listened to a myriad of Troy Aikman press conferences through the 90s.
And I think, didn't he just get the contract for ESPN Monday nights, covering Monday Night Football?
Yeah, that was this year was his first year on Monday Night Football, but they don't get any playoff games, so I don't know, man.
Yeah, we need coverage there on the playoff games.
Yeah.
We might have had some good luck there.
Maybe so. I don't know, man. I feel bad for Dallas fans. By the same token, just do what everybody else who wins does and get a real general manager and just get some real players.
But, I think it's also it's almost like watching the TCU football game, right? Just those fans are so loyal and they were so excited to see TCU take it as far as they went. I think Cowboys fans are a little bit like that, right? The fact that we, broke some records, that we haven't seen on the road in 20 years.
Beat Tom Brady.
Oh, yes.
But the Bucs are terrible this year. They shouldn't even have been. I mean, they got lucky to be in the playoffs.
I know.
Do you have TCU ties?
I don't, but I have a lot of friends.
Yeah, I do too.
And it's, we're DFW, right? We're going to root for Fort Worth. If we don't have a team, if we don't have a skin in the game, we're definitely rooting for Fort Worth.
I was 1,000% pulling for TCU because I knew it was going to make Texas and Texas A&M people crazy if they won a national championship. Because those two schools think they have this birthright.
Yeah, I'm just pro Texas. So if we have a Texas team
that's
in
a good
a bowl
answer.
game,
yeah,
and, I think that's what we do. We root for the.
Maybe I would do that too
for the home team.
Was there ever any thought in your mind when you and your husband then were thinking about moving anywhere else other than Texas?
So my now ex-husband was from Ohio. I was born in Georgia but grew up in Northern California. And no, I'm
no Southern drawl.
No.
No Georgia drawl?
No, I do love grits, though.
A lot of people love grits.
Well, I don't know. You go to California, that's a tough one. Do
they look at you like you have two heads if you order grits for your California brunch?
It's like in California you can't find queso and you can't find grits. Those are things that are just not.
That should be illegal.
I swear they don't even know what grits are. I have friends from there who came here and they had no idea what I was talking about.
That's Morgan Freeman, the voice of God.
I love it.
Hold on, no queso in California.
You know what you get? You get nacho cheese sauce. It's like that stuff you get at 7-Eleven, and they don't have queso on the menu.
So it's like easy cheese warmed up?
Yes. It's like when you go to Walmart or Sam's Club and you get a big can and it's just orange cheese with little flecks of pepper and chilies. But they call it nacho cheese. It's not queso.
What's going on?
There's a reason why California is California.
Have you ever had Tex-Mex in Colorado? Because it's not much better.
Okay.
It's very touch and go. Like, I think I'm going to stick with the elk steak when I'm in, at Breckenridge or whatever. Because
I like elk. Do you hunt?
Too. Yeah, I grew up hunting.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm as red-blooded American as it gets.
Okay.
Yep.
I've been hunting a few times.
Really? What did you hunt?
I've hunted for boar. I've hunted for deer. I've hunted for wild turkey.
When you were hunting for those pigs, were you, what were you packing? What kind of fire? Were you doing a sidearm or did you have a rifle?
No, a rifle.
Really?
Back in California. Hunting in California is different than Texas.
Sure.
It's almost like the Wild Wild West in California. There are no feeders. You go out there, they have certain seasons where it's just bow season. You're really going out there with turkey season right before the sun comes up. There's no blinds or anything like that. You're sitting there, you're waiting, and when you're going out deer hunting, you're out there tracking deer and on your feet, and you're not waiting for them to come to you. It's definitely an art.
Picturesque wilderness in California, Northern California is where you're from, and Washington, where I'm from. There you can actually go hunt because there's wildlife out there. Here, unless you're out by Big Bend, or much of anything. I don't even think you can call what they do here hunting for the most part, unless it is pig hunting, because you do have to get out into it. Unless you do what Genevieve did, you're doing the pork chop deal, which a lot of people think that shooting a hog out of a chopper is easy, and that is a son of a gun.
No.
That is hard.
It is hard. I haven't done it, so I can't speak to it, but I mean, that is pretty impressive.
Hey, my hat's off to Ted Nugent for getting that bill. Like he spearheaded getting that through the Texas legislature, because hogs here are a massive. They're big time destroyers of. They'll run through yards up there by Little Elm, Prosper, Aubrey, like whole herds of them. Because they just rut around those lakes, and you'll be driving around 3 in the morning, and you'll see like 20 of them just go across 380 and down, and they just run through fences, yards, whole 9 yards, and just ruin everything.
Well, we had in California, they were overrun by hogs as well, and I think that they're Eurasian hogs, and it was interesting. The government would still charge in California for permits to go out and eradicate something that was already overrunning the state. And then they hired people to go out and start just killing hogs, but they were not allowed to take them and eat them. They had to bury them. And just to think about how many people a hog could feed, and what is a ticket, a tag, $75 to have
them,
to have the FDA like inspect the food. You could have gone and sent it to an orphanage, to the prisons. It just was, to me, just an issue.
Was Newsom making everybody give a eulogy at the hog burial?
No, I'm sure.
Yeah, he probably came up with that. On the back of a napkin when he was at French Laundry one time. No. I don't know. That's a backward state.
It is.
How long did you live there?
I moved from Georgia to California when I was 3, and then I moved from California to Dallas in 2015.
Okay, so you lived most of your adult life in.
Yes, I moved to Dallas when I was 30. Is that right? I'm 38. Did I do math right?
I don't know.
Yeah,
15 plus 8 is 23.
Okay.
And we're in 23. Yeah, you did your math
gosh.
right. Your real estate clients will be happy to know you can do math.
I usually count with my fingers, so I'm glad I was able to do that.
I just use the phone now. Why do we even have math class in school?
Yeah.
We shouldn't have math class in school. We should have like how to get good credit.
I agree.
Not math class.
I agree. One of the things when I ran for Texas House recently that I was focusing on was coming out of COVID. A lot of technology was provided by these school districts. And so I have 2 kids. They're 5 and 7. They go to public school. And they are given iPads before they know how to read and write. My 5-year-old who's in pre-K4 is given an iPad, and it has YouTube on there. The kids can go surf YouTube.
Full
openly.
YouTube or just YouTube
full
Kids?
YouTube. Full
What?
YouTube. And parents are not allowed, until recently, parents are not allowed on campus from the hours of 8 a.m. and 3:15.
Okay, so I did want to get into this, so we may as well just get into this. So I come from a background, my parents are both educators.
Okay.
And they started a university-style K-12, more of a like first grade through 12 school system here in Dallas-Fort Worth.
Okay.
And I can't understand why in a state like Texas, if I want to put my kids in private school, why I have to pay property taxes that go toward government-funded schools and pay for the private schooling, or if I want to homeschool myself. Why aren't there more eyes on that issue? So, and I'll give you a chance to answer, but like in Australia, you get a voucher, and you can spend that voucher. You send them to a state-run school, you send them to a private school, or if you can prove that you are homeschooling, then that voucher goes wherever to pay the teachers at each. I just don't think that's fair. And as you will probably expound upon, our education system, even in the great state, isn't doing what it needs to be doing.
I think we're ranked 48th out of 50 in terms of educational performance in Texas. You will be happy to know that in the 88th legislative session that choice schools, charter schools, and kind of opening it up to vouchers and what have you is something that they're seriously considering. So we may actually see some bills passed to allow for school choice this session.
we get in Texas a lot of heat for we're on an independent energy grid. We all obviously had Alaska, 2 Februaries ago in like 2 weeks, and then our education system. The why are we 48th out of 50? That's mind-boggling in such a can-do state. And we'll talk about what makes Texas special later, but that's just nuts.
Well, you know, Houston, I think, is the second largest school district in the country. Dallas is the second largest school district in the state. You know, I think part of it is our school districts are just so large, right? How do you manage the infrastructure and being so top-heavy with all of the, you know, we're not focusing on the academics any longer. We're not focusing on the students and the parent-teacher relationships. We're focusing on the infrastructure, focusing on the red tape and just all of the resources that go into an administration piece, right, rather than the student. So I honestly think that if we broke up some of these school districts and made them smaller, that we would actually have a lot more success.
What's a practical way to do that? You would just go into the Houston school district and the Dallas and just start splitting them up geographically?
I mean, look at what we do with our census, right? You know, we just came out of, we just redrew all of our boundaries, right, for national seats. So our Senate seat, our congressional seat, all the way down to city council seats. So, I mean, that's certainly something that we can do and look at potentially. And I don't know the cost impact. This is something you'd really have to get in the weeds on. But you could do something like that every, 10, 20, 25 years. Look at the makeup, the demographics, the population. There's a lot of growth in Texas, right? So we need to look at how we manage the growth and where those are centralized and the resources, right? Because school districts in rural areas may not be getting as much resources as some of the urban areas.
Yeah, I mean, growth, you came here in 2015. That was before it was even the de jure thing to do, which is really something in the last 3 years. Lots and lots of people moving, especially to DFW, which is really thrown a hitch into our traffic. Our infrastructure needs a lot of work.
And
the grid
politics
makes me nervous.
So the grid is something, there is another priority of Abbott's when in session. They've looked at, how we make sure that our nuclear energy plants are working in the coldest period of time. Gas lines are where they should be. And also, they've removed the provision where the board that made up ERCOT, majority of the board members didn't even live in the state of Texas. I mean, you have people that are overseeing our energy sources that don't live and are not stakeholders here. So that's something they've done away with. But, there's something to be said about being energy independent, right? Especially in light of what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. We are less susceptible to being tapped into by a foreign entity and being hijacked, if you will, our energy and power sources. So, I mean, I appreciate the fact that we have choice when it comes to energy and what we can purchase as a consumer, and that we're relatively a little bit more secure from terrorists attacking our power structure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any Texan, whether they can say they're a Texan or whether they got here as fast as they could. I moved here in college. I've been here ever since. You can't beat the gals in Texas. That's what I learned when I moved here. I was like, man, it's hot as hell, and I can't stand these allergies. But whoa, I had no idea that this is what was in Texas that nobody knew about. It was crazy. So I stayed, and the economy is awesome. But we're the only state in the union that runs on our own power grid.
Yes.
That is something that I think gets a little bit less attention than it should. And while, yes, we had a major failing in Feb 21, we didn't have any blackouts or brownouts last summer. Do we think that a lot of that has to do with some of the burgeoning solar efforts on the residential and commercial
honestly,
levels?
I think that it was just a collective 2 years ago when we had that freeze of just a lot of different energy sources going out at the same time. The reason why a lot of our energy and gas is so affordable is, we have it on a rolling, mechanism where, we have some nuclear plants that are on when we need them and less on when we don't, right? And that provides a lower cost product for us. So part of it's timing, part of it's unfortunate where some of the gas lines, froze and just the infrastructure there. But the infrastructure is sound. Our grid is sound, but it just happened to be a series of unfortunate circumstances during that storm.
I think they went back and did, an investigation and tried to figure out what caused it, and it was like a perfect storm. I'm in the restoration business, and we're still finishing projects from that, so it's a little crazy.
Yeah.
What do you know about, or how much have any of your constituents said to you about the way homeowners insurance companies treat Texas constituents in the state of Texas?
You know, that wasn't one of the priorities that really came up when I was knocking on doors and talking to people in the district. I really can't speak much to that. I know that after some of the big hailstorms that came through, 5 or 6 years ago, and coverage now versus then has been something that's been a little bit more favorable to the insurance companies rather than the homeowners. But I mean, I wish I could speak more to that.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that people don't think about, just like they don't think about who their carrier is going to be until something bad happens.
That's right.
And then if they have USAA, they think, oh, they'll take care of me. I'm a member.
Yeah.
The troops, Gronk on TV. And then when the rubber meets the road, they get left in quite the lurch.
So how'd you become a member? Are you former military? Is your dad?
I'm not.
Okay. So.
I'm helping several clients right now
I see.
who are
Okay.
absolutely getting the shaft, and it's terrible. And it's a proven fact that insurance carriers target single moms, single women, senior citizens, and minorities. And they do it a lot, and they do it with impunity. And it's something that if I was ever going to run for office, I would for certain bring to the fore, because it drives people insane.
Sure.
And it's not something that's sexy to talk about on the evening news, so it never gets any pub, but it's a massive problem. When you were knocking on doors, and we'll get to how you got in the race in a second,
Okay.
what was that experience like?
So I ran for city council in 2019. I personally knocked then on over 2,000 doors, and again, just this last cycle in 2022. I mean, that's the best part of it, right? You get to go and go to neighborhoods that you normally wouldn't experience. You get to engage with neighbors that normally, you wouldn't share anything in common with, other than you live in the same city or same district, and you get to connect with them and live it through their experience for a few minutes based on kind of what their needs are. And their needs are maybe vastly different than what you imagined, and maybe what your own needs are.
Did you get any folks from the other side who gave you the Texas bless your heart, get off my property?
No, it's interesting. Most people are nice, relatively nice, when you're knocking on doors, especially if you're knocking on doors with your children, which, by the way, it's never too early to start getting your kids involved in politics and their civic duty. Now, probably less neighborly when I'm at the polls on Election Day and early voting greeting. I did have somebody yell at me and tell me that they wish I would die because I was Republican, that I'm racist and evil, and that my kid should be ashamed to have me as a mother. So there's that, but...
Solid. All solid rationale behind all of those comments as well.
Excuse me.
Very mature way to handle things.
You do, and you realize that it's not. You can't take it personally, right? These people have no idea who you are. You are putting yourself out there. Your views may differ than their own, and you just nod and thank them for showing up to vote. And you really have to just be the bigger person, right?
Oh, no doubt about it. When you ran for city council in 2019, what spurred that along? You just took a look around and didn't like what you were seeing and thought, I'm going to get involved?
Yeah, so I think there's two types of people that run for office, right? Those that have always been kind of seen being a politician as something that's glamorous, and they want to sit there and be like policy wonks, right? And then there's those that get involved because they have no other choice, and I'm that person. So I moved here in 2015 from California. I bought in Lakewood in East Dallas, was married at the time. In 2017, in the height of the Ferguson movement, Mayor Rawlings created a Confederate Task Force Committee assessing anything that had ties to the Confederacy. Some of our streets in East Dallas were on that list to be renamed. I had an 18-month-old at that time. I was 8 months pregnant. I took an approach that let's just take a step back. Let's look at the cost of taxpayers. This was Gaston Avenue. Baylor Hospital sat on Gaston. There's a lot of multifamily small businesses, and let's look at the impact, not just to change the street names, but the impact of those living along these corridors. And I garnered over 3,000 signatures on my own. I marched down to the task force committee with my 18-month-old, 8 months pregnant, and I was successful in blocking the task force from renaming these streets. I think I ultimately saved the taxpayers around $500,000. So that was kind of my first moment where I was like, I shouldn't have to. Like, I shouldn't have to take up this fight. I'm pregnant. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have kids. We should have a greater input. We shouldn't just be living in this world where everything is very impulsive. Granted, we have to be sensitive to certain, to racial relations and our history, right? But let's all take a deep breath and come together and let's find something, a solution that's amicable, that meets the needs of both sides. And then in 2018, TxDOT, the Texas Department of Transportation, tried to basically realign a state highway onto the same street that we just mentioned, Gaston Avenue. And that was a unique project. It was 3 different city council districts. It was 3 state representatives. It was 2 state senators. And it was a TxDOT and Council of Government-led project with City of Dallas bond money. And we were just advocating for a greater community input and more of a compromise plan that put forth basically a design of the intersection that was standard to what we commonly see. And so things didn't go our way, but we had 2,000 people involved in that final public process. And then the city council member in that district that I lived in decided he didn't want to run for re-election. And that's when people in my community looked at me and said, look, you certainly know how to engage people in our neighborhoods. Would you consider running?
When you had your first foray on the Gaston issue, did you reach out to city council or to your state rep and say, yo, no dice, all of my neighbors don't like this?
Yeah, so, typically at that point I didn't have the relationships with city council and elected officials that I do now. It's much easier to go to elected officials and to advocate for change or for things to stay the same if you have a lot of neighbors and support. So my first moment at that point when the initial name change was under question, creating a change.org survey or petition, if you will, and circulating that, walking in and having 2,500 people in support of what you're advocating for is a much bigger seat at the table, even if it's just you, right? So I walk in then armed with my neighbors in writing, supporting what I'm trying to do.
How did you get those signatures?
A lot of social media, a lot of Facebook, a lot of, news articles. I was on the media, interviewed, about that with local channels. And just really people were shocked, people that on both sides of the aisle. I said, look, Gaston Avenue was named after William Henry Gaston. He was the first mayor of the city of Dallas. He donated the land where Fair Park sits today. Most people didn't realize that Gaston and Lemon Avenue had any ties to the Confederacy. People are like, this is our history. This is a history that isn't really significant in terms of, have any ties to the racial divide that we still see. And people said, okay, enough is enough. We're spending money and being impulsive here where we don't need to be. So I think people felt really passionate about, hey, look, we're taking things too far on both sides of the aisle. Like, this is ridiculous. Things have got to stop. And so that was an easy way to really get that petition out and garner the support I did.
Yeah, I mean, if you do research about the war between the states, the Civil War, it's got more to do with states' rights than anything else.
That's right.
And it's been distilled down into this one talking point. And everything associated with is this oversimplification, painting things with this broad brush as we see now, creating uproar and this we're all so angry we're going to do something about it. Yeah, take that monument down. That's going to fix it all.
I think that we had a really good opportunity. Some of the monuments were put up in the height of Jim Crow. I mean, they were intentionally put up, to sit there and to create a racial divide, right? But I think context is important. There's an opportunity for us to keep the statues and give note to when they were erected, and then also maybe erect a statue that gives kind of homage to those that have been in the past, disenfranchised by our history, and basically acknowledge both, right? Wiping out history does nothing for any of us moving forward. And that's the argument I also took with preserving our street names, right? It's, the land where Fair Park sits today was given by William Henry Gaston. So as a city, we're looking at renaming this street, but yet we're still going to enjoy the land where Fair Park sits today. I mean, you can't have it both ways, right? You can't have the outrage and change a street without giving back the land we're enjoying, right? And so that's also a point I made, right? It's just you can't do virtual signaling. If you're going to do it all the way, or don't do it at all.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't know that. That's awesome. When you were growing up, were you a big arguer?
I mean, my parents always thought I should have been a lawyer.
What did they do?
So my parents met at Oracle, and they both worked in high tech, in sales.
Yeah, my parents told me to be one too, and I got a good score on the LSAT, and then I was like, so I got to be inside for the rest of my life. That's my life if I do this. I think I'm going to swing a hammer.
Yep.
Have a good day.
And then you didn't walk out of law school with $250,000 in debt. I think you came out ahead.
Yeah, I think so too. And I would much rather tell my lawyers now, can you just go take care of that, please, than have to be them.
That's right.
That seems like a real drag.
Yeah.
I also hate like admin work, typing, all that is just, it's not my passion.
Yes.
I'll
I
say
seem to
that.
somehow get involved, though, with legal components. And that's what's interesting story. I don't know if you know this. When I got on the ballot for this last seat, my opponent actually filed a lawsuit in the Supreme Court of Texas to try to have me removed from the ballot back in August. So.
And his rationale behind that was that the Republican Party didn't have the right to replace the person that they had removed, and they removed that person because of residency issues.
Yeah. So as I
See,
say,
look at that.
Yeah, I know you're pretty good. You're pretty
Research.
good.
What's up?
You're pretty good. So we can get into the weeds on how I got into this seat. But so redistricting happens every 10 years. So the federal government goes out and basically, knocks on doors and assesses, growth and demographics and population, and then they redistrict boundaries to fit similar demographics and population. So that's what happened. And the previous Republican nominee for House District 114, for the last 20 years, had resided in 114. Turns out they were 2 streets over. So the primary election happened. He had no opponent. The primary was Mark Hoyt, who ended up, moving on into the general. And then what happens is the state party goes through a canvassing period after the primary. What that means is the head of the Republican Party of Texas, which is Matt Rinaldi, goes through and looks at every single seat on the Republican ticket and says, okay, do you meet all the qualifications to be on the ballot? Well, what happened was Mark didn't, because he didn't live in the district. So because he was removed by the Republican Party of Texas, that gave the Dallas County Republican Party an opportunity to replace and pick who they wanted to be on the ballot as the replacement.
And when you are approached to be that person, what's the first thing that went through your mind?
So when I ran for city council in 2019, I was married. My children were 1.5 and 3. Life is a little bit different then, right? Fast forward 3 years. Now it's March of 2022, and the party comes up to you and says, hey, we need somebody to fill this vacancy. You already have the infrastructure in place to run a campaign. The district already knows you. You've been involved. You sit on all these boards. You know how the city and state works to a degree. Will you run? And I'm like, no. I mean, at March, I'm a single mom. I've just gotten a commercial real estate 3 years before. I'm still building my business. Who has time to take off? I mean, to go run a campaign. It's a 15, 18-hour day job running a campaign. And then I started thinking about it. Everything that I had given me reservations about running, the biggest deal of my life ended up closing early. I talked to my clients, and they're all like, you should do it. We'll stay with you. We'll support you. And then I went to my family, and they said, you should absolutely do this. And at some point, I had to stop saying no, and I felt like God was pushing me to do this.
So rewind back to when you first get involved, when you first moved here, about the Gaston issue, and then about the I-30 issue, and then you run for city council.
Yes.
What's in you when you first move here to get involved?
I didn't want to. I didn't want to.
You just looked around and nobody else was picking up.
I had to, right? I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom raising two babies when all that started happening. I would rather just live my life and get to focus on, my friends and my family and my faith, and not have to worry about, taking on the local and state government, right? We shouldn't have to do that.
But nobody else was stepping up?
Nobody else was stepping up.
And you tried to bring it to other people's attention, and it was just not a big enough deal, or it was too controversial to get involved.
So with TxDOT, elections were coming up, state elections, midterms elections were coming up, city council elections were coming up. People didn't want to touch it, right? It became such a hot button issue. Chamber of Commerces were involved. I mean, we got there was public meetings that happened with TxDOT where only 60 people were in the room, and they started back in 2016. We didn't get wind of it because Texas only notifies a project with the residents and stakeholders within 200 feet of an intersection. So we didn't get wind to it until we started getting notices in our mail like, this is what's happening. You need to look. You need to pay attention. They're going to redesign a street to basically dump onto state highway to dump onto your street. Now's the time to pay attention.
Gaston's already hectic enough as it is, man.
It's the most unsafe road in East Dallas.
It seems like it. I'm sure the stats show it too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It curves into Richmond right there. It's people are trying to cross and the sun is setting or rising. It's very much a residential street. For sure.
I mean, there's schools, there's the country club, there's residents that front Gaston Avenue.
Small businesses. Grocery store. Yeah, it dies into 78 there, and it's got the I mean, Gaston is one of the biggest, one of the most famous residential streets in the whole Metroplex.
And so I was I definitely ended up getting some neighbors involved. I mean, it wasn't just me taking on the fight, by myself. I mean, definitely the name change, that was solely me. But I was fortunate to have maybe about 10 or 15 other neighbors that worked with me. We created a grassroots organization called Lakewood Citizens for Responsible Traffic. We created yard signs. We had petitions. That one point, I had my daughter in November, and the final discussion was happening in January of 2019. So I brought my 6-week-old to these public meetings. I would go down to TxDOT for 6 hours at a time, looking at their plans, doing FOIA requests, going through all of the history of why we got where we got, and why there's options on the table, and why we can't have a compromise plan.
When you start to get involved like that, did you get introduced to haters, trolls, people who are saying like, what is this? Like, who do you think you are? You're not from here.
Yep.
Where's your experience?
Yes.
All that.
Yeah, and I think it was actually uglier taking on, because it was definitely a division of sentiments on which plan should have moved forward. It came down to 2 plans, option 1 and option 2. I advocated for option 1, and it very much became west side of the lake versus east side of the lake. When you look at White Rock Lake, Gaston Avenue and Mockingbird Buckner are the only 2 ways around that lake. So there was definitely perception that we from Lakewood, west of the lake, were trying to keep those east of the lake off of Gaston and out of our neighborhood, which is definitely not true.
Right.
I made some enemies, which now we're all friends.
I mean, Tom Landry used to live on the east shore of White Rock. Like, no one's trying to keep the east shore people out.
No, I think Erica Badu lives right on White Rock Lake.
She does, but she lives on the east shore too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can walk right by her house.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I always find it interesting as a tax-paying, voting, straight, white man who normally votes right of center, but is not tied to the Republican Party at all. I'm an independent. I always have been.
I think you make up 60% of our population.
Don't you think that it's just bizarre that we only have 2 viable options when it comes to voting day? Like, you can write in, you can vote for Libertarian, you can, but the concern is that you're going to vote for the lesser of the 2 evils. If you vote off grid, then the greater of the 2 evils is going to get the nod, and things are going to be even worse than they already are.
Well, I think the two-party system seems to have worked for us for, since the creation of the United States. What I would say to that is, if you're not happy with what you get to vote on at the general, then the general election, you need to show up in the primary, because the primary is where you see a diversity of thought within each party. And I think historically, the most conservative, the most liberal are the ones that make it out of, the primary into the general. Now you have to ask yourself, are the most conservative and liberal on both sides, are those really the people that are truly, representative of the district? And in some cases, absolutely, right? Texas is really red, right? Senator Bob Hall does a great job of representing his district. Congressman Lance Gooden does a really great job of representing his district. And they're very conservative members of, the the state and national level of politics. But that's what I say to you is if you don't like what you see in November, then show up in March and make sure that you're voting for something that aligns with your point of view. Because I would say 60% of our population lives in the middle.
Yeah, there's a lot of complaining, right? A lot of discontent, but it's all easy button discontent. It's all, I don't like this on social media. Okay, I did my part. It's all, we need change. Okay, I did my part. Yeah. Or it's all this whinging and complaining about members at the macro level. POTUS, bad news. These national representatives, congressmen, whatever, I don't like this, that, or the other thing. What people don't understand is that down at the grassroots level is where the change
That's right.
can happen.
That's right.
There's a correlation there, like in your own life, usually the biggest change is probably looking back at you in the mirror. Is this something that you understood when you were young, or is this something as you got older that you started to take more interest in politics, the way things are?
I mean, I had no interest in politics. I mean, I lived in California and was driving to school in San Francisco, and I would turn on the Patriot Channel and listen, to the Patriot Channel every day going to college, right? I've always been a conservative. But it wasn't until I got to Texas, I kind of took it for granted, right? Because here I'm moving to a red state. When I moved here in 2015, every house had not just one flag, but two. They had the American flag and the Texas flag. And then you start to see this shift. I mean, drive around your neighborhoods now. I mean, maybe in Frisco, they have, there's some Texas and state pride, but East Dallas, it's not what it was in 2015.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's people who are, who will for sure shout from the mountaintops, those educational numbers. They will scream and holler about that grid breakdown. Yeah. They will talk about the bad things about the state. And there is not the prevailing almost, when I first moved here, I didn't really realize how proud of Texans were. It's when you're up where I grew up, that's way down there. And I think they still ride a horse to church. Yeah. When you move here, and that was in like 96, 95 or 6 for me, if I'm dating myself well. I don't know. Yeah, I think there's still a lot of state pride. I think we do have a lot of people who have moved here for one reason or the other. Maybe they wanted to, maybe they didn't and they had to because where they were was so bad. Maybe the state pride's dwindling somewhat. I mean, I love Texas. I'll always... I mean, even if I don't live here for the rest of my life, I'll always have a place here. You know what I mean? I think for me, it's the people and the attitude. When you were like, we're moving to Texas, what was it about Texas? But a lot of people bag on Dallas too, and I really like Dallas.
I love Dallas.
Yeah. But it's weird because people... Like your West Texas guys will be like, Dallas ain't Texas, man. They'll say that.
Well, we don't sound like the West Texas. I mean, I wish I had an accent. I wish I moved to Texas and had an accent like they do in East Texas.
You could. Just watch you some No Country for Old Men and that other Jeff Bridges one about the bank robbers from like 2 years. Just watch that on repeat.
Okay.
And then slow it down. Just slow everything down. Throw y'all in there. Okay. And it get you some. And what y'all up to. And you'll be...
Y'all is definitely in my vocabulary.
It's so easy.
It's in my emails too. I mean.
Oh, I y'all it up like a son of a gun.
This is stolen valor. I don't stand for it.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, from a native Texan. It's an homage. So
in all fairness, I've given birth to 2 Texans. I think by proxy, that's not stolen valor, right?
Okay. That's a hell of an argument.
And I ran for Texas House as a Republican. I don't feel like you get any more Texan than that.
Fair. What about you, Jess? Where are your kids?
I don't have any yet. That's a project that that will be worked on. I don't know, man. I sell Texas hard. Whenever I have friends come here, I'm like, see, this is why right here. So they're like, it's flat. We have mountains and the ocean. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome for a while. Until it's like $6 for a gallon of diesel. Yeah. Like, I don't know.
But I mean, we breed different folks here. I mean, the heat is not for the faint of heart.
It's not, but you know what? And I used to hate it. Now, I mean, I guess it's the age. I don't know, but I prefer the summer.
I do too. In California, you have to bring like 4 different, like costume
Especially
outfit changes.
The Bay Area, it's winter and summer up there.
Oh, it is.
The coldest time of the year in the Bay Area is summertime.
Yes. What was it that was said the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yes.
I'm going to Tahoe in a couple of months for the first time to snowboard at Heavenly, so I'm very stoked about that.
You'll like it. I mean, you're from the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, yeah.
You'll like it.
We used to. I grew up snowboarding on a glacier at Mount Baker. That's almost in Canada. So yeah, I'm stoked. But I don't know. Last time I was in California was a road trip from here to Seattle for Thanksgiving, and I had to navigate around all the fires.
Oh gosh,
it was crazy.
I love Oregon.
Oregon's great.
My grandmother.
You can get all the drugs you want now too.
Right?
Decrim,
and you
man.
don't even have to pump your own gas.
And they'll give you the needles for your heroin.
Well, there you go. And that's where Nike is.
They don't. You don't have to pump your own gas. What are you talking about?
In Oregon, it's illegal to pump your own gas. It's a way for them to employ people. Everything is full service.
See, I've seen that on movies and shows. I've never had my gas pumped.
They also don't have a sales tax there.
I mean, I can get behind that. I think you eliminate all federal income tax, all of it, and you just attach everything to sales tax.
Okay, so you mean the federal government will have to live within their means?
Look.
It's a novel idea.
I think that would be important. I also think that employees of the federal government, who are actually supposed to be employees of the American people, I think that their investments should be monitored.
Do you see the new bill that's being submitted?
No.
The Pelosi bill?
No. Who's submitting it?
Oh gosh, I can't remember. I can't remember what congressman's submitting it. And I just looked at it briefly, but I believe the provision is that if you are either a congressman or a state representative or an elected official at the national level, that you cannot buy or sell stocks, or your spouse.
I mean, is it
Josh Hawley?
Okay, there you go.
Is it gonna get? It's not gonna go through, probably.
I think it might. I mean, we have the majority in the House.
Yeah. Did you see that there was a Twitter account that was cataloging all of her investments so you could follow along and invest in what she invests in, because she's apparently the best investor to ever walk the planet.
Pretty incredible.
She's a better investor than Nostradamus would have
been. That woman makes $174,000 a year, and yet she is worth how many millions?
I think 150.
150 million?
I think according to Brad Lee, it's 150.
It was like 120.
Ooh, well, I was 30 high.
We're in the wrong business.
I mean, I sure am. You might be.
Oh, no.
You might be in the right one.
I am all for term limits, and I am all for the Pelosi bill. Yeah. You've heard it here.
When did you run for like student office in college?
No, but I was.
Were you like the yearbook president in high school?
I was in yearbook in junior high.
Okay,
I was captain of my JV field hockey team.
Okay.
So, and then our field hockey team went to nationals 3 years in a row, and we won nationals my junior year of high school. Oh gosh, I am.
Nationals.
Nationals.
Wow.
Top 10 in the nation.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Field hockey. That's like hockey with no skates and kind of a combo between hockey and lacrosse.
That's right.
So it's a lot like the Gaelic games, like hurling. Do you know what hurling is?
I do.
What they play in Ireland?
Yes.
That is, that's nice. They got to wear those cages. Do you have to wear a helmet with a cage?
No.
Really?
Only the goalie. It was like your uniform is similar to soccer. You have shin guards, cleats, except you wear a kilt. I mean, you get to wear a skirt and play a sport.
Right on.
I'm surprised we didn't have more men watching, or boys.
Don't the lacrosse gals wear a skirt too, I think?
Maybe?
I don't know. Not super familiar with either. I mean, I support anything that gets people outside. I'm more of a rugby guy. They have women's rugby too.
Okay.
But every time I say that, people are like, "What? Girls play rugby?"
I like my teeth. I'll be okay.
Oh, you just wear a mouth guard, man.
Okay.
You'd be great. You play center, put you on the wing, maybe.
Okay.
You run tries in from all over the field.
Is that where our next podcast is going to be held from? On a rugby field?
Yeah, or you could come down to Glencoe, and it's right there. It's real close to your district. That might be in the 114.
That was in my district, yes.
Then you come on out. I'll introduce you to the Dallas Harlequins, the men's and women's, and the youth team.
Okay, I can walk to Glencoe Park.
Okay, I support that. I like Glencoe. They need to water it a little more and plant some more grass. So maybe we get with the Parks and Rec. You can help us out with that a little bit.
I do know a few members on the park board.
I want to get back though. I mean, when people are telling you like, who do you think you are you just in? Because I'm not a parent, but I'm an older brother.
Yeah.
So if anyone messes with my younger brother or sisters, I don't care at all what anyone thinks. I'm immediately running to their aid. Or if you if you do anything to my mom or dad, same deal. When you have kids, is it just like blinders on? This is wrong. I don't care. I'm all over it.
Yeah,
or
and it's
did you heed any of that? Did any of that bother you when people are like, who do you think you are? Are you just like, well, I'm an American citizen?
it's just you don't really realize what parents and kind of our new generation is facing until your kids start entering into public school and you start facing things that you felt like, this isn't going to happen to me. This isn't going to happen to our kids. We had a teacher at my kids' school that was put on an administrative leave for inappropriately touching 2 children. And the school didn't notify us for 2 weeks. I mean,
What in the world?
The fact that, and the only reason why we were notified is the parents of the children that filed a police report against the teacher that made these allegations, and they're still under investigation. They came forward and told the parents of the school, look, this is what's going on.
What, had the teacher been put on leave or anything?
Yes, on leave.
Yeah, and I mean, look, innocent until proven guilty.
It's true.
That's a little bit of a different deal right there.
It is.
though.
When it involves minors, I think that at least an email that doesn't... We received an email that said an incident happened, a teacher's put on leave. I don't know how you sit there and reconcile that and look at parents in the face and say, an incident occurred. I mean, that, molestation and child abuse is not just a minor incident, right? We should not be looking at it as such, and we shouldn't be treating it as such.
Yeah, that's wow. Yeah, that's not an incident.
No.
That's a gross generalization of something that should probably have been addressed a little bit more specifically.
But and that's what I have to reconcile with every day. It's like, do I continue to keep my kids in public school, or do I pull them out and put them in private school where the curriculum is a little bit more aligned with my values and maybe the religious components with my values? But then I think if good people like me that aren't involved, that are not paying attention, start pulling their kids out of public school, then what product are we left with?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the cow's out of the barn too much on that, because the values for sure, something to be argued. I mean, I was raised in a very value-driven household, and that's great. I'm all for whatever gets people through their life when it comes to their faith and God and church and all that. That's awesome. But also just the rigors of the curriculum.
Yeah.
Like, are you actually prepared for life?
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like that's happening. And just getting you ready for college is just about turning you into a battery to
That's right.
plug right into the matrix anyways.
Yeah.
Like, just let's turn all these people into really good employees.
Yeah. The one thing that DISD's done really well, hold your breath, is that they have had to...
At least there's one.
They've had to navigate this demand on the private schools and charter schools and magnet schools. And so they've really stepped it up because they realize that if we're going to be able to compete, we've got to create a similar product, right? So now DIC is putting out schools like Solar Prep and Skyline, where you have really great products. Like Skyline, I think, is one of the best schools in the country. And it's a public school offering. So, I mean, that's what competition brings, right?
Yeah, Thomas Jefferson with the arts and sciences, too. Sure. Yeah, there's improvements being made. It's a very odd... it's this dichotomy that we have where our economy is capitalist.
Yeah.
If you have the better mousetrap, you sell more mousetraps.
That's right.
But in the education side of things, it's it's the way it's always. Like, who do you think you are sending your kids over there? Are you too good for? Well, if I think this is best for my kids, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
But it's a very weird double standard there.
is.
I'm going to ask you about that in a minute too. But I don't get it. We've got the best and the brightest. Is it a teacher shortage? Is it that parents aren't involved enough? I know that's an issue. I know it can be more of an issue as you get into the bigger school districts where parents are kind of like, look, I need that school lunch and I need that 8 hours so I can go make rent. And then they're just gets to fix it and forget it. And they wouldn't even care, maybe some of those parents, that you can't go see your kid for 8 hours.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's an all of the above, right? I think that, the school that my kids go to, on the books is a 5 out of 10 school, but in the last few years, the community and the parents have gotten so involved with having an active PTA, and having a really good principal changes a lot. So that certainly moves the needle, right? But part of it is, I think, these teacher unions, right? there's a lot of issues with the teachers unions. We keep bad teachers, right? We can't get rid of the bad teachers. How do you incentivize these teachers? How do you pay them more unless it's, merit based? And that's not really in line with some of these teacher unions. And then definitely during COVID, I mean, a lot of teachers left the workforce, so we're struggling with that. Honestly, it's the infrastructure. It's being so heavy with DISD and with all the administration piece that we forget to, like I said before, to go back to the basics. Remember who is the consumer there? It's the child. That's a priority. That should be all that matters, right?
Should be.
Should.
I mean, I guess the macro question is, like, what's the goal? Like, what are we trying to turn all these kids into? Mm-hmm. And that's something you could definitely get off into the weeds, as you like to say, about way back in there. We're like where the hogs are.
Oh, yes.
Way back in there.
Oh yes, they have hours-long school board meetings just on the weeds alone.
Yeah, and at least they do. At least some people are identifying that, hey, maybe the way that we've always done it isn't the best way now. I mean, I think you see with student debt being what it is going to college and getting the college experience necessarily worth the next 20 years of your life paying back a debt that you maybe didn't need? You could have gotten that education online. You could have gone to a community college, get your associates, then got your bachelor's another way. There's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. Or what a lot of people are saying, which is, that college education is great, but maybe it's not 100% as necessary as it used to be.
And I mean, trade schools, we should really start focusing on trade schools. I mean, all a college degree does is tell a future employer that, look, I was given a task, and for 2 to 3 or 4 or 5 years, I showed up on time, 6 or longer. I showed up on time, I completed my task, and at the end, I was committed to, an organization or an educational platform, right? I mean, that's all a degree does.
Yeah. It's, the education system, I think what you're saying about, if I pull my kids out and everyone does that, then where does that leave things, is a very difficult place to be put as a parent, but also as a leader. So when you moved here, were you thinking in your mind, when I move to this community, I'm going to start looking for opportunities to lead? Or was this more, there's no one else doing it, everyone's either too busy or too disengaged or turning a blind eye, and if I don't step up, then nobody steps into the gap, and then the dam breaks.
Yeah, no, I was perfectly happy just being at home, cooking dinners, hanging out with the babies. I didn't want to, right? You have to. And I was fortunate we moved here. We moved into East Dallas. And
just to be clear, no one brainwashed you into that way of thinking that you wanted to be home, raising your kids, cooking dinners, keeping the house. I enjoyed
it, but I also.
So you didn't watch a YouTube video and they changed your mind and it became problematic?
No, I mean that is being a parent is the most important job. Now I get to balance both, being a single mom, at staying, raising our kids, and also working. And I think that this is the best version of myself because I get to show my kids what it means to show up every day, show up for other people, and show them what it takes to, to put in for hard work and what the outcome could be. And I think that makes me a better mom.
As a woman in politics, did you get any good old boy from both sides saying, or are we past that? Or does that still exist?
So I'm in commercial real estate, right? So it's made up of 90% men. So I know how to reconcile and navigate that, dynamic of being a female in a male-driven world. I think that my resume and being involved with so many different boards at the city level and nonprofits, and then just being, doing a decent job in commercial real estate, I think that I have a certain level of respect where I didn't really have that. But, people, when mailers go out and your face is on it and you're not ugly and you're a female, it certainly is something people look at you and say, is she qualified, right?
Yeah, that's a weird deal, right? That's like not comfortable to talk about.
Yeah.
If you're in politics and you're a woman and you're not ugly, are you qualified?
Yes.
Like, it's not really your fault that you didn't get born ugly. I mean, it's a bummer when you do get born ugly.
Yes.
There's not much you can do about it, but it just is what it is. That's such a weird question to ask, too.
And so it was just...
So you got to look like Hillary to be qualified?
No, but I think that I've been told before, I don't look like a mom. Well, what is a mom supposed to look like, right? So I guess the same question could be asked. You don't look like a politician. You don't look like a community leader. You don't look like all of those things that make up who I am.
That's a weird thing to say to someone too. You don't look like a mom.
I know.
I don't even understand what that's supposed to mean. I've heard it said though.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Huh. Does anyone ever say that to a dude? You don't look like a dad?
No.
Unless they play in like an Ace of Base cover band or something.
I think dads still sometimes get away with saying, "Oh, I can't go out tonight. I've got to babysit my kid." Well, no, it's not babysitting. It's your child.
It's your kid.
Yes. So I think that there's still that nuance, the difference between being
There's a little double standard there.
Yes.
Then when you look at the conservative side of politics, we don't seem on the conservative side. I said we. That's the way I vote, so it just is what it is. But it doesn't seem like at the very highest level, at the macro levels, there are women being put forward like there are on the other side.
I disagree.
Okay.
You have Genevieve Collins, who ran for Congress.
Yep.
She did a great job running the campaign. Now she is the head of Americans for Prosperity for Texas. You look at Beth Van Dyne, who was the mayor of Irving and then now is a U.S. Congresswoman. Look at Myra Flores coming out of South Texas. There was a lot of support around those female Hispanics that were running in South Texas. You have our first ever female land commissioner with Dawn Buckingham in the state of Texas. So I beg to differ.
Those are good points. So then I, like every regular Joe, am like, well, but Texas, there's a history here of having, Richards was the governor of Texas, good old Ann for a long time. You want to talk about a Southern drawl and a way of doing things. We haven't had a female run for president. We've had one put forward as vice president.
Did we have Nikki Haley? Didn't she run?
Did she? I don't know.
It's where we look to y'all out there.
Yeah. And
I believe that Nikki Haley ran. I don't think she made it as far as we would have hoped. I'd like to see her be on the either presidential ticket or vice presidential ticket.
When you look over to the other side and you see what happened in the last go-around with Tulsi Gabbard, and how she was gaining some momentum, and then it was like this major, I just call it that lib double standard, where she was discredited. They just shot holes all through the hull of her boat and sunk her in favor of Hillary. There's this weird double standard.
Yeah.
Or feminists will say, we need more women in government, equality, all this stuff, right? Whatever. And then Sarah Palin will put herself out there. And maybe she hasn't made all the greatest decisions in the world about like reality TV shows and stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
But there is this rush to discredit.
And I think that for the most part, unfortunately, that comes from other women, right? It's women. Women don't dress for men; they dress for women, right? They want to impress other women. I think that
is that true?
It is. It is.
I didn't know that.
Y'all don't know. You don't pay attention to our shoes or what earrings we're wearing. You don't care about what handbag we're carrying.
Yeah, you're supposed to look right in the eyes. Not. But, yeah, you're right. That's a really good point. So, you were asking me fashion questions when you first came in here. I have no idea.
That's right.
It's way out of my wheelhouse.
Women are our toughest critics. We're hardest to support each other. Even to this day, I think women tend to support men over women, especially in politics. It's a challenge that we face, and I think that we realize that there's enough pie to go around. There's enough money to be made. There's enough support to be had. And I really am selective on who I surround myself with. Genevieve is a really good friend of mine. It's important to have people in your life that realize that, like I said, that how valuable support is, uplifting each other, walking into a room and introducing, your friends to other people, right? Like realizing opportunities for your friends and making that introduction or opening that door. And I just don't think that's a mentality that is widely utilized across our country.
Do you see that same mentality not just in politics but also in business?
I think so. Yeah, in commercial real estate, it's really tough. Women are the hardest to sometimes transact with. I wish that wasn't the case. But it's that kind of eat what you kill mentality, and the fact that we're trying to prove ourselves in an industry where it's mostly men. We look at other women as, instead of, an opportunity to work together and kind of move the needle, we look at each other as competition, and that really shouldn't be that case.
Yeah, just has to be a genetics thing, right? It has to be a nature thing to a degree. Like at the core, what's driving that is not probably necessarily learned behavior, but something that's just there somehow, like inherent.
Yeah. I had a conversation with somebody about this the other day, and it must go back to when we were cavemen and women, and we're all fighting over the same mate, right? And it may be something that's just born in us, but it's nice to surround yourself with women that break that mold and realize their own confidence and what they have to offer, and that uplifting all really is something that could change the trajectory.
You're in commercial real estate, so you're in sales.
I am.
Right. So that's a funny thing, though, to say to another person who's in sales.
Yes.
Because when you say that to someone who's not in sales, that's like a dirty word to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Are you, you're hiring. Yes, I am. Okay, what's the position entail? Well, first and foremost, it's a sales. No, can't do it. I'm not in sales. And I'm always like, actually, you are all the time, 24/7. If you don't realize it and you don't identify it, it means you're doing a really bad job at selling yourself. Even if you're in tech or you are in support, you're still in sales.
Yes.
The sales side of things, though, requires compromise. It requires collaboration, cooperation, commiseration, all these things to get a deal done. All requires a little give and take. It requires when you talk to a potential client or another real estate agent, you are bringing energy and you're being strong and courageous, but you're also there to make a deal.
That's right.
The same qualities seem necessary for a successful politician. I have these certain beliefs. I've run on these main campaign points. These are the planks in my platform. They're not changing because I can't say no new taxes and then put a bunch of new taxes in place, right? Or I lose all my credibility.
That's right.
How has your sales career helped you be a more collaborative, cooperative,
That's a good question.
professional politician?
That's a good question. Before I was ever in commercial real estate, the first industry I ever worked in was the restaurant industry. I feel like everybody should work in the restaurant industry at least once in their life. That is true collaboration and salesmanship at its finest, right? You're at a table, you're telling them what to order, when to order it, and then you're working with others to make sure that the experience is the best it can be, right? And you may be working with people that you don't agree with, but at the end of the day, the priority is getting that, getting the meal perfect for the customer and having the best experience so they come back and supporting the business. So I feel like it's always been ingrained in me, kind of that collaboration. But deal making is, and sales, as you know, it's just putting yourself on both sides of the deal, right? And that's how you get things done in office, I would imagine. I've yet to be elected. We'll see.
You will be. That is how you get things done. You do look at it from both sides. It's a very immature position to take of, I have tunnel vision. This is it's my way or the highway. Never gets a deal done. The deal has to work for both sides if it's a long-term deal, or the side that got taken advantage of is going to be very hard to work with whole time. Everyone has to walk away feeling like they won.
Yes.
And
or both, or lost the same amount.
Exactly.
Yes.
Which, if you're in business, is a win. Because if I don't get 100%, but I get 90, I'm okay. When you moved here, did you have any real estate experience at all?
No.
Because that's move to a new place where you've never lived. You might have some friends here and try to build a book of business, but in that vertical, that's a...
So I've only been in commercial real estate for 3 years. So after my city council race, I was doing some family office stuff and then was involved in kind of business development and restaurants and stuff back at home. But one of my supporters that supported my city council race looked at me after the race and said, "Well, I'm in real estate. What do you think? You personally knocked on over 2,000 doors." And I thought about it and I went to him. I said, "Okay, I want to do commercial real estate." And I was going through my divorce that period of time. I have 2 small children at that time, 1.5 and 3. I had 2 opportunities on the table. Go into commercial real estate where you're starting off making only $25,000 a year, or I was offered a job to run a fundraising campaign for a nonprofit, which was paying considerably more. And I'm like, do I take this where I'm making more and I have more security now, or do I take the leap and realize there's a huge upside, and I really get to eat what I kill and I can provide for my family, but it might take a few years. And so I jumped in to the commercial real estate.
How long did it take you to close your first deal?
Oh gosh. I just closed my biggest deal in January, right after I got the nomination to run for Texas House. My first lease I executed was a few months in. But so I got in the business, and 7 months later, the world shut down because of COVID. Yeah. Truly not the most ideal time to get into a sales job, especially commercial real estate, right?
Yeah. But no one's using offices anymore.
Well, and
restaurants are just kitchens now.
Yeah, I had some deals fall apart, but also, it's such a relationship-driven business, but I'll tell you, I wouldn't have it any other way. Now I almost feel like deals happen organically, and getting into the business, when you have to work that hard, when the world is falling apart, you realize what it means to get deals done. So when you're sitting here and things are a little bit more smooth sailing, you're like, is this how it's supposed to be?
Yeah, when there's not chaos and you're used to chaos, there's almost this weird, I don't know, it's that imposter syndrome. Like,
yes. Yes.
Did I miss something? Because there's no fire to put out right now. What's going on?
It's scary. It's a scary place to be.
Did you ever think through the process of getting your book of business built up? Did you ever think about tapping out?
No. No. I kept on it.
Never thought about selling Amway or Mary Kay or something like that.
It's the same practice, just different product.
It is, man.
They're
parties,
not paying you salary. A salary would be really nice. I would love a salary. I would love a salary and then an upside with commission. I don't think that exists in commercial real estate.
No.
If it does, come find me.
You're all ears.
I'm all ears. But it's just there's
Get those
also
DMs.
It's
brokers.
But it's also just kind of that. You know how it is. It's like you close one deal and then you start chasing bigger deals, and then you see kind of what the upside of those deals are, and it's kind of like you're addicted to the chase, right?
Oh, no doubt.
And so it's hard to give up, right?
Getting a deal done is a massive dopamine kick, no doubt about it. You have to temper that. At least I've found. You just have to take that in stride, just like anything else, because you're going to lose. If you win one, you're about to lose one.
That's right.
If you lose one, you're about to win one. All life is this cycle of wins and losses. So if you can try to keep it right here, at least on the surface, it seems like, at least in my experience, that yields a better long-term result than this stuff.
Yes.
But it's hard.
It's hard.
Really hard.
But I've had some really good opportunities come out of that. Since I've gotten commercial real estate. Hold on. This is just water, by the way. I know it looks like a beer.
It's our proud sponsor, Liquid Death.
Liquid Death.
Thanks, Ryan.
So I got into commercial real estate. And then the partner of the retail connection where I work, a few months in, came to me and said, there's this nonprofit organization, Brian's House. They want me to come to this luncheon. It's a think tank of executives and those that are really involved at a high level with the city. I want you to go for me. And I'm like, okay. And I call the CEO of Brian's House, and she's like, well, we were really hoping to have this executive there. I'm new to the business. Excuse me. I show up anyways. And she was impressed with what I had done with the community before. She got me really involved. She got me involved in their fundraising luncheon. And then before you know it, I'm sitting on their board of directors. And then I'm their second vice president. And I'm chairing their fundraising committee. And so things kind of came full circle, right? Because when I left my marriage, I was looking at 2 different opportunities after that campaign, right? I'm looking at real estate. I'm looking at nonprofit. And now I get to kind of do a little bit of both, right? Obviously, the real estate's what pays the bills, but like being involved with a great organization that helps children with disabilities in North Texas, like Brian's House. That's the most fulfilling part, right?
Yeah.
And then I really got involved with TREC, which is a real estate council. I'm on their PAC board of directors. I sit on their public policy committee, and I was on their associate leadership council. So the networking I've had coming out of one small city council race has just been incredible.
Yeah, and I think that it's really cool that you think of it
dying over here,
as,
sorry.
I know it, don't let Clay
Gosh, I'm
Jenkins
sorry.
hear you cough.
The microphones must love me right now.
Or he might
oh
come up
gosh,
here and try to
it is
shut
not
us down.
COVID, y'all. I think.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it is, because that shit doesn't touch me.
I've
so.
yet to have COVID.
What's up? Yeah, I had it like 3 times.
Oh, you did?
I had Carter calling me weekly. Yo, we need, because I give blood in the holidays and
Okay.
stuff. Let me virtue signal the hell out of everybody over here. It's mostly because my doctor tells me you should do this, like, and you have to, or whatever. It's not because I'm an awesome person.
Do you have special blood? Is that why they ask you to donate?
I had antibodies.
Oh, I see.
So they just started they're like, oh, you have antibodies. I was like, really?
Well, now
so
they
that means I got the cold. Somewhere along the way, I got the cold. Because when COVID came out and they said stay in your house in 2 weeks and flatten, I left my house every day. I work in essential. I think everyone has an essential job. It's providing for your kids and your family.
Absolutely.
I went to job sites every day. I went to the office every day. I started this podcast. I was shocked by how many people were so afraid. I was upset. I was truly bothered by that, very disconcerted by that. And I started looking around going, okay, who do I know that I can pay Ryan to set me up a studio, to bring him in, and we're going to talk about living a fearless DIY life. Because nope, got to shut her down. Nope, you can go to Walmart or Home Depot, but you can't go to the mom and pop. And you can go in the restaurant, but you got to wear a mask till you sit down. And you got Clay Jenkins passing all these, telling Greg Abbott, no, this, that. We're in the great state. What the hell's going on around here?
Well, that was all political play, obviously.
Right.
You know, Clay Jenkins was going to run for governor had Beto not stepped up.
Yeah.
So that was all political theater at our expense.
Does Clay want to take the ARs too?
I can't speak for him.
Well, I think I'll put my address up at the end of this, and they can come up there to Collin County and see if they can get them away from me.
Our guns aren't going anywhere. We're in the great state of Texas. We've got Governor Abbott, good conservatives in
Governor
the state.
Abbott, who's tweeting about Brett Maher missing extra points.
I've met Governor Abbott a few times. He's quite cheeky. I mean that was probably the highlight of that game.
That's a joke that only Greg Abbott can make too.
It is. Well, for context though, it's funny because everybody in Texas knows that Governor Abbott is in a wheelchair, but you get out of Texas, and my dad met Governor Abbott, had never realized that he was in a wheelchair.
Whoa, really?
So I think that it's kind of a cheeky little tweet for us Texans.
For the Texans.
Because I think, like I said, I don't think most people realize that our governor is disabled.
Greg gets a lot of credit for good things. He gets blamed for a lot of things, like like Dak gets blamed for everything. You know, the head of the table takes all the heat.
Yep.
That's just the way it is. When you get elected, are you prepared for the scrutiny that may come your way? That people talking bad about your kids, or people talking about you, or people talking about your personal life. Is that something that even concerns you?
I have thick skin. I think families should be off limits.
10-minute first dates, you said.
10-minute first dates. I have thick skin. I think actually me running for office scares a lot of guys off. They're like, do I even want to get in this realm?
Well, there's a lot of weak dudes out there, Sarah.
There are.
That's
Might
a
have to
fact.
start importing. Dallas is a tough place to be.
Get you some Fort Worth dudes,
I've been spending a lot of time in Fort Worth, and I
Atta
really
girl.
like it. I might be moving out to Fort Worth.
I don't blame you, man.
You never
That
know.
Drover area is great.
It's great.
Yeah.
I was driving in Monticello neighborhood the other day, off of West 7th University. Some really good neighborhoods.
Oh, those neighborhoods, like where Gary Patterson lives up there on the golf course behind TCU, you can't beat that.
Oh.
I think that might beat Lakewood, and that's hard to say. Lakewood might be the nicest neighborhood, common knowledge neighborhood that most people would agree on. And I've seen them. I mean, I've traversed the Metroplex since I've lived here, working all over the place. Lakewood's awesome, but over there's beautiful.
It's a little bit of a slower life over there. People are... It just deals with a handshake, and people are just genuinely nice and good, hardworking, honest folks.
Gotta love the Terrence, and the Terrence hate the Dallases.
I know. Do you think they would ever take me as their own over there?
I think that you got a way about you. I think if you could slow her down and throw a few more y'alls into every paragraph, I think you'd fit right in.
I have a proper cowboy hat or two.
Okay.
And
What
some
are
good
we
boots.
going? Black in the winter and white in the spring and summer?
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The wide brim, or you got like the straight up on
No,
the
no, no.
sides one?
I have kind of a combination of both, right? I have the wide brim that's slightly up.
Okay.
Yes, and
All
then
right.
just a slight tilt up front, and then I have some python cowboy boots to go with. That's a little Dallas meets Fort Worth.
Yeah, that is Dallas Fort Fort Worth. I don't have any cowboy boots.
You don't?
No. I don't even have a cowboy hat
What?
anymore. Yeah, and I'm more of a cowboy than most of the guys walking around in that
You've
stuff.
been in
so.
Texas long enough.
I know it. Yeah.
You
I
know,
don't know.
I think you just don't want to partake in the stolen valor.
Yeah, I don't want to get blamed. I don't know. You said earlier that women don't dress for men, they dress for women. Who do men dress for?
Men dress to be comfortable.
You just put on
You just
whatever's
put it on.
clean, man.
And then when they're married or they're taken, they end up dressing when whatever the wife or the girlfriend puts them in.
So you can always tell when a dude starts dating us like a certain chick because the scruff, it goes to a certain length. The hair gets done a certain way. There's like facial. Something happens there.
You start giving away your Carhartt.
I have a closet full of that. Was your old Carhartts. You get that Tom Brady restructuring of the face going on, and then they always wear a snugger cut of jeans.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Which is just
It always starts with the pants and the shoes. You can always tell when a guy starts going off market because it starts with the pants and the shoes.
What did the shoes change from to? They change from.
You have pretty good shoes.
Is that?
Yeah, he's wearing
know.
some good Nikes here.
I don't know, man. I just put on whatever's there. Sohail gives me shit about my shoes all the time.
Okay, well you're matching today.
Yeah.
Good effort.
That was an accident. Thank you.
Did your fiance get you dressed today?
No, I was able to figure that out on my own.
Okay, good
Yeah,
for you.
but barely.
Barely.
Yeah, I was like, oh, last minute. Yeah. The move to Fort Worth, I think, I don't know, the business climate out there is a little bit slower though too.
It is. It is. You have to kind of understand the infrastructure there. It's a different book of business over there.
I think you would really have to think that one through. I think you might even have to put a little prayer into that one too,
I know.
like
I
you
know.
did about running.
It's God's will. Whenever He opens a door, I try not to question. I try to just walk through it.
Yeah, that's a good way of doing things.
It's done well for me so far.
Yeah, you can't force things in life.
No.
You know, if you do put your best foot forward all the time, good things tend to happen.
Mm-hmm.
If you stop or you redirect or you quit, bad things seem to happen. Nothing happens. Nobody bets on the racehorse that doesn't leave the gate, right?
That's right.
I've heard you talking a lot about things you do for other people,
Mm-hmm.
your kids, your community, the state. What do you do for yourself? Do you have like a good morning routine? Are you in the gym a lot?
I work out at home at night. I probably should visit a gym more frequently. I love to cook. That's kind of where I feel most comfortable. I love to get my kids involved in cooking. I'll put my daughter up on the counter. We'll cook together, especially Saturday, Sunday mornings. But even during my campaign when I was running, if it meant there was 20 doors I didn't knock, but I could be at home to cook dinner and put food on the table and sit around the kitchen table with the kids, that was always a priority for me. But when I don't have my kids, I love going to restaurants and kind of experiencing new cuisines, spending time with my friends, getting out on the Katy Trail, basically all the typical Dallas girl things.
Yeah, that's all very Dallas-y of you. Yeah, I don't know if you can leave Dallas behind hearing that.
Fort Worth has some good restaurants, though.
Yeah, there's good trails out there, too. Yeah. It's just not Dallas, but
it's just not Dallas.
Everybody out there says it's better. Everybody here says this is, I don't know why everybody's got we all just get along, man.
I just went to Fort Worth 2 days ago and got a passport in 25 minutes. I mean, that's some good living out there when you don't have to wait and bureaucracy actually works.
That's clutch. But did you get the passport card, too?
No,
you got to get that.
I do?
Because then you don't, it's just if you go to Mexico or Canada, then you don't have to carry the book with you. You can just carry the card. It's like a license.
I think I'm at a point in my life where I want the stamps in the book.
You want the stamps? You want to show the stamps off?
Yes.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay. So what are you doing to fight? Like, do you get anxious? When people are talking, when on election day, were you nervous, or were you just like, we did our best, what come what may? How does that happen?
So just a little background. So I decided in June I was going to run. When they came to me in March, I said, no way. And finally I prayed on it. In June of 2022, it's like, okay, let's do this. I'm in, right? There's nothing else that's holding me back. God's telling me to do this. And so then I went to the head of the Dallas County Republican Party, and she said, well, somebody else already put their name in. I said, well, what's this process? And she said, well, all the precinct chairs in House District 114 have to vote on who they want to be their nominee. So here I'm like,
So it's like a little caucus kind of?
well, it's the most intense election you've ever been in, because it's the most conservative members of your district. And you're having to prove to them that you are values aligned, that you are as conservative and the conservative values, the Republican Party of Texas values are important to you, and that you'll be the best advocate for those values down in Austin. And also you have to prove that you can win. And it was touch and go there for a while. I'm like, I have all this infrastructure in place. I've already run a campaign. I've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for Brian's house. I'm like, I can do this. And I ended up winning the nomination on July 19th, 6 out of 9 votes. And then we announced August 1st. And then August 1st, on my birthday on August 18th, August 1st, we filed with the Secretary of State. So we were on the ballot August 1st. August 18th, my opponent, John Bryant, sent a demand letter that I remove myself from the ballot or he will seek judicial relief. And I took it, right? I'm not going to bow out. We've gotten this far. Right? The voters deserve to have a choice on the ballot, right? And so we got out of that lawsuit September 10th.
What, summary judgment or just dismissed?
It went straight to Supreme Court. They ruled in our favor and said that the argument he made was moot and that I was eligible to stay on the ballot.
And what was the argument that he made?
He argued that the previous Republican nominee withdrew from the ballot, and therefore the party was ineligible to actually appoint me as a replacement. Because if you remember, I said that if you withdraw, the party cannot, you forfeit that seat, right? But if you're removed for whatever reason, then the party gets to pick a replacement. And of course, then there was conspiracy theories, right? That the party knowingly put somebody on the ballot because they wanted to handpick me and put me in that seat to be the best challenger in this district. We all knew going in it was a tough seat. Running in East Dallas as a conservative is not an easy feat. But as soon as we got we won the victory in the Supreme Court from September 10th to November 8th. We got the Dallas Morning News endorsement. We got the Dallas Police Association, Dallas County Sheriff's Association, all the big nonpartisan endorsements. We raised $150,000. So, we put our best foot forward. We knew, because it was drawn to be a favor of the Democrats by 16, 18, 20 points. So, we knew it was going to be a tough one going in. I put our best foot forward. And then on Election Day, we ended up getting, on Election Day, 45% of the vote, and then a bit less than that overall. But we realized that had we had more time, we probably would have made a greater impact.
Do you have your eyes set on another race? Are you weighing your options? Are you just right now kind of moving in place on the politics side of things?
I'm continuing to stay engaged. I just hosted an event for Moms for America that helps women and frankly anybody advocate through public school systems and school board meetings on how to create transparency and advocate for their kids. I will get more involved at the state level, whether that's an appointment or just working with legislators to help make sure that our city is thought of. And still getting back into the city politics a little bit, maybe with a city board there. I was on the zoning board for 3 years. I think it's kind of one of those things where it's God's will again, right? I never intended to run for the seat. I was in Morgan Meyer's seat before I was redrawn into 114. So I think you just sit and pray on it, and if you're meant to run again, you will, and I just continue to stay involved in the community until then.
You've said God's will a bunch. So, I come from a big time church background, right? So what I've seen and what really turns me off is the God's will people who then they don't do anything.
Yeah.
They just go, well, wasn't God's will. And then it's back to Fortnite 8 hours a day or Call of Duty or just, I don't know. Back then it was like Phil Donahue and Oprah and Sally Jesse Raphael, right? So I like to tell people God helps those that help themselves.
That's right.
God has a plan, probably, if you believe in God or the universe or whatever gets you through. But nothing's ever going to happen if you don't take action.
That's right.
There is definitely something that's very unattractive about someone who's always forcing the issue, where it's always awkward and weird, and they feel like they're trying to get themselves out there and get the spotlight on them.
Yeah.
The faith part of your life obviously plays a big role in it, and you're right out there with it, which is awesome. When did that become a big part of your life?
So, I mean, I grew up in a house where we only went to church, midnight mass with the neighbors. Faith was not part of the equation. But I knew that when I was moving from California to Texas, that I wanted faith to be part of my life. I realized that certain circumstances in my life would not have happened had it not been for something bigger than me. And so that's when I moved to Dallas, I went through the Rite of Christian Initiation for Adults, RCIA. It's a Catholic program. I became Catholic. So I was pregnant with our son at the time and went through that with the Catholic Church. And it was interesting. I mean, I got baptized with my son.
Wow.
So that's when I just knew I wanted to find a home, and I felt that the traditions of the Catholic Church were something that kind of transcended cultural, norms, and you can go to any country and like I said, the traditions would always be there.
Do they make you you have to take an exam and pass with a
Scantron? You kind of do. It's just keep in mind though, when you're a cradle Catholic, they breathe that into you. I mean, that's every day you're living the traditions, the Hail Marys. I mean, I'm not the best Catholic. I wish I was. I have not done Hail Marys in a while. I should probably go to confession. It's been a while.
Faith not works, Sarah.
I know.
Without faith, works is dead.
I know.
Listen to my man Martin Luther. He nailed the 95 Thesis to the door in Gutenberg, and he said, "Nah, I don't think so, Pope."
Yeah.
That was the power move of all power moves in the history of the Christian faith, is what Martin Luther found out, because no one could read the Bible, because the only people who were allowed to read the Bible were the clergy.
Yeah.
And he said, "Whoa, right here in the Bible, it says that faith without works is dead.
Yeah.
So, pay for my salvation? Nah, that's not how it goes down." And he took a huge nail and he wrote it all out longhand, and he nailed it to the door of the church in Gutenberg, Germany. And they wanted to burn him at the stake for that, for saying faith without works is dead.
Sure.
It's faith if it helps you get through is an amazing thing. I feel like a lot of people think that's an easy button to punch though. It's I'm gonna go to church and that's my lotto ticket. I'm good to go. I'm made now for the next. I'm okay for a week. It sounds like it's deeper than that for you though. Like it's maybe something where you didn't grow up with it, but you see the value of it, and you want your kids to see the value of it earlier on than you were exposed to it.
I mean, I also think, won't get too far in the weeds with this, but coming out of a tough,
way out in the weeds,
tough marriage and being a single mom, there's life's handed me some good cards, and I also think that you make your own luck. I mean, I work hard, but also if I didn't have kind of a foundation network that I have, safety net with my family and support, and then also faith. I mean, I just look at where I'd be as a single mom. I mean, God put me where I'm at, right? And I'm lucky for that.
Yeah, I mean, you can actually empathize with single moms because you are one.
Yes.
And you're right out there with that too. I mean, you talk about that pretty freely.
I am. I didn't actually during the campaign. And it's interesting. My mailers went out. My face was on all these mailers and social media, which is a very weird thing to be.
I'm sure.
And it was obvious that there was not a man there, right? I had me and the kids. So it's like, is she a widow? Is she divorced? I never came out and once during the campaign mentioned I was a single mom. As a conservative, you question. I'm like, do conservatives vote for a single mom? And then you also look at it. It's like when I ran for city council in 2019, I was married and I was 33 and had a 1.5 and 3-year-old. And I was asked by the media, well, how are you going to be able to balance being on city council with 2 small children? And I'm like, I can't believe you're asking me that, right? You wouldn't ask, and I'm not a feminist, but you wouldn't ask a man this question, right? And
just like you don't look like a mom.
It doesn't look like a mom.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's none of your business, right? How I raise my children. If I want to have 10 nannies to help me, that's my own decision as a parent. So that was something, and I was married at the time, so you have the infrastructure and support. So there was definitely a question when running. I'm like, what are voters going to think about me being a single mom? Are they going to think I can handle the job and juggle it all?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough, right? Because people want someone they can relate to.
Yeah.
But I also feel like people have this unrealistic expectation of our leaders.
Yes.
And I find that to be confusing because they put their shoes on one at a time, just like you do, unless they're Crocs, maybe. They struggle, just like you do. Home life's not always great, just like you.
Yeah.
They have to get up and work out, just like you do. There's this weird disconnect among the citizenry, among the peasants, right?
Yeah.
Of well, you know, I don't have a Harvard education. You know, I don't come from a family of wealth. You know, I don't know. I'm not that smart. I'm not that talented. There's not much I can do. And that's so wrong. The degree to which you commit to that which you're passionate about is the degree to which you'll be successful at it, regardless of how talented you are, what you look like, how you sound, how you were raised. There are people who seem to be natural leaders like you, but are there times where you're like, man, this is too much, or my God, this is more than I bargained for? Or is that where the faith kind of comes in to maybe soften those hard edges and help you through those tougher times?
It is, but faith is a part of it. But I also think that I try to qualify my time really well, right? Your time is your most valuable asset and resource. So when I take on projects, or or clients in business, or I take on a new board, or a group, an organization, I look at, what do I have to give up to do this? What is it that I'm getting out of it in terms of, being involved with a nonprofit? I mean, I get a lot out of that because I'm giving back to the community. I mean, had my circumstances been different, I had a child that was born with disability, I would need their services, right? I see a lot of value in protecting and helping our most vulnerable children, right? So, I mean, I don't, running a campaign gets overwhelming, right? And trying to maintain a business and a household. My laundry skills could probably be better. But, it's just being very intentional and asking the right questions when you take on a new opportunity, and making sure that you're not giving up that time with your family, your kids, or your free time. And if you are, at what sacrifice and to what amount and what degree?
The time management part of things, when you are taking on new commitments, are you just do you have an assistant? Are you managing all your time yourself?
That's a good question.
And are you like blocked out, like is your day every 15 minutes is totally scheduled out?
No, I have ADD. I mean, I'm organized up here, but I'm not regimented to that degree, right? I have a wonderful admin at the Retail Connection. Her name's Laura. She's great. I think she saves my life a lot of times, but I'm definitely managing my own schedule. And I just the beginning of the day when I get to the office, I sit and write down, and I have a checklist of the key priorities that I need to achieve that day.
Have you always been ambitious with regard to your career, or is that an upshot of having kiddos?
I think, well...
What did you study in college?
Just general business. I think that...
How'd you like those statistics classes?
Oh my gosh, they're
no
awful.
Doubt.
Actually in college, this is when I realized that our education system was so flawed.
Right.
I had a professor who taught us civil rights, or the American history up until the Reconstruction. So Civil War era. And he looked at us and said that the Bible was only written to justify slavery. And I realized that our educational system is not there to just teach us what really happened in history, that there was an influence there that was greater than...
I haven't heard that one before.
Me neither.
And I've heard a lot of them.
That was something that that awakened me a little bit.
What university was that?
San Francisco State University. I mean,
bastion of higher learning.
You should have had an idea, right? But this was a long time ago, right? This is before we even talked about indoctrination of our children, and the infiltration of kind of the liberal media and doctorate into our school. So it was interesting. It was definitely eye-opening.
When you come across people, when you're knocking on their door, or you meet them at a charity function and you tell them what you do, and they start telling you about their struggles and their concerns and things like that, do you notice that people are more frustrated than you feel like they've ever been? Is there more of a malaise because it's almost like we all have adult onset ADD because of social media, and because we are literally, unless you consciously and intentionally cut it off, you can be inundated with marketing from the second you open your eyes until the second you go to sleep. It's just crazy. Yeah. Like it's there. You have to almost purposefully say no. Like I'm putting my phone in the drawer at 8 p.m. and I'm going to take it back out at 6 a.m. or whatever. Do people seem more or less engaged now in 2023 than they've seemed to you in the past?
I would say less. And it's shocking because coming out of COVID and you know, the lockdowns and what we were subjected to, I would have expected that this would have been the Great Awakening, right? I would have thought that we would have seen people show up, especially at municipal and local elections, in droves to show up and support and realize the importance of a local election. And we didn't see that. I think in Texas, the voter turnout was 6.8% in our midterm elections. And so I think people are just still living kind of on neutral or cruise control, where they're expecting their elected officials to just take care of things for them, which is how I sort of lived before I had to get involved, right? You know, I think that's what Americans really want. They want to trust their elected officials to handle things. And I think they just are so far, they've got so much on their plate that they don't want to have to think about the nuances of what bills are being passed and how they affect them.
Well, I think there's that, and I just think there's this overall disdain for politicians.
Yes.
There is especially because we don't have term limits. There are lifelongers in there who don't seem so out of touch. It's not even, it's like, I'm not even going to wait. I don't really know what's happening in politics to a degree. I keep track somewhat. I used to keep track way more. And when we got 6 months into the cold, I was like, this is insane and this isn't doing me any good. And I just had to cut it off.
Yeah.
No more news, no more nothing. If there's something that happens, I'll go find out what's happening through a neutral, something that's not Fox or CNN or something that's not mainstream. I think that's what a lot of people are really just disillusioned with. They don't understand that there are people out here who are regular, everyday people who've had struggles, who fought through things, that are taking action, and maybe they just don't feel qualified. And it sounds like you took action not because you were like, yeah, I'm qualified, but because you were like, there's no one else doing anything, and if I don't do something bad's gonna happen.
And I think most people don't ever imagine they'd run for office, and I say to those that if you want to see something small change, like somebody came up to me recently and said, I live in this town, and I might end up running for city council. And he said, it's a small issue that's inspiring me to run. I said, well, what is it? He says, well, the city we live in, they don't give us garbage bins. We have to every week go put our garbage bags on the sidewalk, and they just build up and they pick them up every week. And it's an eyesore. We live in this beautiful neighborhood. And the city council sits there and is like, well, it's just the way we've always done things. And he's young. He's in his 30s. And he's like, I think this is going to be the issue that inspires me to run. I'm like, it only takes one issue. You should absolutely do it, right? Because, I mean, just changing something small is let's bring in trash bins and put them in the back alley. I mean, that could change a whole neighborhood. So I just encourage people that if you don't think you ever could or ever wanted to get involved. And if you feel like you're the one qualified or best one to lead change, then step up and do it.
I think that's a good point. You said earlier you think that everybody sometime in their life should have to work in the restaurant business.
Yes.
I think that every politician should have had to make payroll. If they've never made a payroll, they shouldn't be passing laws.
That's true.
I don't feel like a lot of our politicians at the macro level have any business experience, any business knowledge. They're really good investors, some of them, like we've already covered.
Yeah.
But there's not this rubber meets the road knowledge. Yeah. That's where a guy like me, into my 40s, been really involved. I vote every time, even though I live in the great state and I know how it's going to turn out. When you see voter numbers like that, that's concerning because that's just a indication of the overall apathy of, oh, we're in Texas, it'll be fine. I mean, I was talking to buddies of mine, one, David Rodriguez, championship heavyweight boxer. He's going to come on the pod soon. He's out in El Paso. And I was like, man, this Beto thing it's gaining some momentum. What do you think? And he's real locked into the politics scene. He was like, I think that people don't understand that they need to get out there and cast a vote. I vote because I look at people in Russia or the Ukraine or China or wherever, and I think to myself, they don't have that right, I have that right. And it's almost irresponsible of me not to exercise it, whether or not I know what the result is going to be. And I also think it's super shady if you're going to go around and take everybody's time up with your pessimistic complaining if you don't even take 20 minutes out of your day to go to the middle school or the fire station and cast your vote.
Well, I agree with that. But also, it's never too late to start. Just because you've never voted before, you don't vote regularly. I mean, before I ran for city council in 2019, I had never voted in a Republican primary. So
It's very honest of you.
It is. I mean, honestly, it's just that's the level of engagement I had in politics, right? But it's never. Then you start realizing when something impacts your life, like the importance of not living on cruise control and snooze and just relying on the elected officials to trust them to handle and put your best interest forward. Because at the end of the day, the only one that's going to look out for your well-being is you. So you gotta show up, and you gotta advocate for what's best for you and your family, and the best way to do that is to either run, to speak up, or to vote, or all the above.
Yeah, or to get involved and help people such as yourself.
Yeah.
If maybe you don't feel comfortable putting yourself out there, but go get involved. Go get involved with whatever party you're involved with. Go get involved with fundraisers. There's lots of those that happen. Shoot, I got invited to one that you were at. But I couldn't make it by another realtor buddy and his wife over. It was over off Turtle Creek. This was probably 6 weeks before the election.
Okay.
But I couldn't.
Was it hosted by me? Like for me?
It was for you, and it was hosted by.
Was it Trammell Crows?
Yes, it was at Trammell's.
You should have come.
I know it. Yeah, I had too much going on.
We had over 120 people show up to a fundraiser. I mean,
That's
it's really humbling. It's humbling when people give up their time and their resources to help you get elected. Or not elected, but still.
Well, and I think that what people don't understand is just because you're not involved doesn't mean that other people aren't very involved.
Yes.
And just because they might not look involved, there's a lot of people doing a lot of things that nobody knows about that are making a big difference.
That's right.
When you throw a pebble in the pond, those ripples, they go and they create a tide up against the shore. And if you do want to see a change, like you said, you can make a big difference doing not actually that much. But you have to do something.
Yeah.
Or you don't get to complain. It's not that you can't sit around and say, we need change and then do nothing about it.
Yeah.
It's a lot like being out of shape, and then you're not going to change what you eat. You're not going to change how you sleep or how you work out, but you're still going to complain about it. Nobody's here for that. Nobody wants to hear it. You talked about managing your time, which is super important, but as a public figure, what have you learned about how you have to guard your energy? And is that something you've grown into as you've matured?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't really thought about that. So, I mean, I was very sensitive because at the end of the day, when you run, people will tell you what you need to speak about or tell you how to run a campaign or issues that should be important and want to put messaging out there for you. But at the end of the day, you are representing your values, and people are going to vote for you based on whether they align with those values or not. So you put the messaging out there and what's important to you, and you're in charge of the messaging and your image and how you're perceived. But you also, I stayed off of Twitter. I stayed off of social media other than when I was engaging with voters, right? Because you're putting yourself out there. People are not going to like you because of what you stand for. So I think that's the best way to kind of guard your energy and protect yourself. But I also ran a very positive campaign. I focused just on the issues. I aligned myself with people that are well-respected in the community. And I was very intentional with the way the positions and the things I felt and the stances I took. So I became less of a target also because of just my involvement with the community for so long.
Yeah, I mean, you put you have a track record of helping out and of doing things that maybe you didn't get any pub for or any credit for. That probably cost you time and money that you were doing to help better your community. That builds the track record. That gives you a reputation, and it gives you credibility.
And it made it harder for those on the left to come to see me, to put a target on my back. I had a lot of Democrats reach out to me and said, if you had a D next to your name, I would have voted for you. Or, hey, if you had won, I would have been okay with that, right? And I think at the end of the day, it's like you say you're an independent, right? You tend to vote conservative. But like I said before, 60% of those in America feel like they don't align with either party. They feel like nobody represents their values. And I think that's important, right? We have people in politics that should be leaders and are leaders, but the delivery is something that makes us as voters embarrassed to align with them or to be able to support them, right? And I just think that we need to kind of get back to where we can have a civil conversation. We can have conversations about things that we don't always align on, and do so in a meaningful way that doesn't create so much like negative discourse, if you will.
Right, because the negative discourse then means that nothing's getting done. And it means laws aren't getting passed, changes aren't being made. Everything's getting slowed down. Sand is getting kicked into the gears, and we never make any progress because everyone's just barking at each other from across the aisle.
But I think also if you don't sling mud, it's harder for the opposition to sling mud at you. If you like keep your head held high, focus on what it is you need to get done, the job to get done. In my case, it was let's get elected. Let's run a really great race. Let's try to win this thing. If you only focus on what you're doing and not your opponent or who's behind you, then you have a tendency of not having as big of a target on your back. And then also you're not really affected by what's happening to the degree where it wears on you spiritually.
Sure. Did old boy sling mud at you?
No, just a lawsuit in the Supreme Court. In the Supreme Court. So my name is now somewhere in the Supreme Court records.
That's actually pretty rad.
I think so.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you hear all this talk, maybe you don't. I do. I know it. About you got to try local honey.
Okay.
You got to get honey that's like from here or from the hill country.
Okay.
Put that in your
I've
coffee.
heard that.
Put that in your black coffee.
Okay. I do drink my coffee black.
Yeah.
Does it show?
No, I don't know. Is it supposed to?
I am that person. I drink coffee black every day.
Yeah, I drink it black usually, or I just have a nootropic instead. I don't know. Or Diet Mountain Dew in the morning.
No.
Absolutely.
No, you are. Okay.
Rugby, bro.
Okay. Is that what it is?
I don't know. I keep that limited.
You don't drink the Skittles energy drinks?
No, those are terrible. And I'm big on hydration. I've learned a lot about hydration through the podcast. It's not just about water. So I've been big on that. That's helped me a ton. I've been hear a lot about this toxic masculinity thing.
Okay.
And you work in a male-dominated industry, and then you are helping out in politics, which has always been rich white men or white dudes, white straight men, right? For a long time, at least. Changes are happening. When you hear that term, what is that? Because it's confusing. Because that term means a lot to a lot of different things to a lot of different people. When you hear toxic masculinity, do you immediately think of Andrew Tate, or do you immediately think of what do you think of when you hear that?
I mean, Andrew Tate is very direct and a little bit brash, but I mean, to me, there needs to be this balance of femininity with women and masculinity with men. I don't think we should vilify men for showing masculinity. I mean, that's what makes women women, right?
Yeah.
So do I like Andrew Tate's delivery? Do I find some of the things that he says appalling? Yes.
Yeah, he says crazy stuff right in the middle of stuff that makes sense.
Yes, and it really undermines his messaging because I think there's some things that he says that seem to be very clear in his messaging, but then he throws in some nuances that are really off-putting.
It's such a weird term because it means different things to different people.
What does it mean to you?
It gets thrown out. To me, toxic masculinity is this weird, I'm going to act a certain way, and I'm going to look this way, and I'm going to purport this image, but then behind the scenes, it is Fortnite 4 hours a day. I don't do what I'm supposed to do. I am not strong in mind, in body, in spirit, in soul at all. I couldn't protect or provide for myself, let alone a family or a woman. It is complaining. That's the weakness of I look this way like Liver King, but I do it all this way. That's to me the toxic part of it. I don't know. It's just a really weird world we live in. You have to live in that world, right? You live in corporate America and politics, where in politics, every single word you say is picked apart, scrutinized, and can be held against you.
Yes, that's right.
And I find it to be very odd these days that the way you say something is so important. The way that how things are said, what words are put together in a certain order, whether it is the pronouns or whether it is just the way you order your words. It's like we got to go back to school to learn how to talk.
I just think we need to get back to the basics. I mean, we talked about this in the beginning. It's like these dating apps and these single men, and you look at like women are disposable, men are disposable, right? There's no courtship anymore. We don't have the value that we see. As I'm dying, excuse me. And
That's the worst thing about living here. It really is. The allergies are the worst.
Not COVID. But we don't see the value in creating relationships, whether it's networking or business or kind of those more sentimental relationships, as much as we used to. I mean, we devalue each other because everybody's accessible and, you know, everything is at the people's fingertips. I think that's where we get this kind of toxic masculinity. You know, women aren't making men chase them as much, right? I think that's part of it, and men are just not valuing women as they should.
Well, and I think they, if they're not strong in mind, they'll see something on YouTube or social media, and they'll be like, "Well, I can't. If I do chase this gal, then it's going to be held against me." Or I just don't think there's a lot of people who think for themselves anymore.
No.
At least they're not real loud about it. There's a lot of this. Yeah.
Whatever happened to the gentleman and whatever happened to the lady, right?
What's a gentleman to you?
Oh, a gentleman. I mean, let's go back to our manners. Let's open our door. Let's be thoughtful. We're not playing games. We're following up, you know, being intentional with our time interactions. We're not wasting people's time, right? You know, picking the restaurant, you know, ordering, you know, just being very
So if you went to dinner with a dude
Okay.
and you guys talked about your order and he ordered for you, would that piss you off?
No, so what I love, which is because it's clearly I'm an alpha, right? But when I go on a date, I love it when the guy picks a restaurant, and I get to the restaurant and I say I don't even look at the menu. I will order what I want to drink, like either champagne or a martini, and I'll say, like, this is your show, whatever you want to order. I love just deferring to the man when it comes to ordering, which is I know it's very surprising.
I don't know. That's very adventurous. If that was a first date deal that you did, that would throw dudes off 100%. Yeah.
I do it every single day.
To throw them off. I don't know. Are you telling them, but it can't have gluten, soy, corn, dairy?
No, I'm like, I will eat anything. I mean, I'm like, I probably won't eat sweetbreads, and I probably I don't like uni, but like anything else, like whatever you want to order.
Yeah, that's interesting. Right on. I mean, I'd just be like, right on, bring every steak, and we're good on everything else.
Well, this is like the time for the man to lead, right? We're having dinner. He picked the restaurant. Let's see what his favorites are. It's my time to experience with them why they took me to this restaurant.
If you were giving advice to young dudes these days, then it's not, hey, do you want to go out? Yeah. And then, oh, but where do you want to go?
No.
It's more of, hey, what's up? I'm interested in you. I think we should go out. I'd like to have dinner with you. I've got this great place over here. Does Thursday at 8 p.m. work for you?
Yes, and I'll pick you up.
Okay. So don't meet me there.
No.
You want the pickup?
Yes.
Okay. When does it get weird? If he brings a flower to your door when he knocks?
I don't think that's weird.
What if he sends a driver for you?
That's sexy. Although, if that's the 7th or 8th date, that works for me, right? You can't outsource the work from like on dates 1 through 5.
So date 1, we got to have first impression from.
I think so.
From the get-go, okay.
Right, put in the effort. You want to see me, right?
Right.
Whatever happened to picking a lady up?
Well, I think that the way you feel is the way a lot of women feel, and I think that a lot of women are the growing sentiment is we're looking around and what's going on with these dudes.
See.
And I think a lot of dudes are finding stuff on the internet, so they don't need women.
That's right.
Or they're just jumping around.
Or they're just sliding into DMs and getting whatever they want.
Right? Mm-hmm. You're not, if somebody DMs you on social media and they're like, great smile, Sarah. I see we have a couple of common connections. How are you doing?
That's not an immediate no.
But you're, because I keep hearing this too from the gals who jump on the boat. See, I like throwing gals around. It's very non-threatening.
Okay, I agree.
You know, gals.
Sounds weird if I say it. It's okay if you say it.
Yeah, it's certainly a Midwestern way to, I don't know. I think guys are afraid to be assertive now, unless they are just assertive and they just don't give an F. And I hope that you appreciate that I have really toned down the cussing on this
Well, you don't need to do
episode.
that. I'm in commercial real estate. I'm in politics. Please do not do that on my accord.
I try to be polite. If I have a woman who's a client or a podcast guest and she drops an F-bomb,
Okay.
the floodgates.
I don't swear, but maybe
I
once
know,
a
good
year.
Catholics.
But this is where we go back to where, if a lot of women align with how dating should be in terms of what I'm putting out there and what we want to see from men. If we all work together and said these are the behaviors we'll tolerate, then men will ultimately have to step up their game. But we still view each other as competition, and so we're getting the product that we get because we can't all agree on the same standard in which we want men to treat us.
Except that you are weeding out all the guys who are very suggestible. And that's probably not someone that you would really gravitate toward in the first place.
That's right.
So if somebody out of the blue is much different than every other Peter Pan who's trying to hit on you, then you're going to be like, oh, whoa, something different here. Yeah. What's the story? And I think that's what I just think that everyone has become so beige.
Yeah.
It's just all this middling. I don't want to swim on the outside of the school. Yeah. I want to be right in the middle so nothing can nip at me and life's easier and things are just too hard and it's too hard to date women. So just I'm dialing the porn up or just whatever. Not if it's easy, it's not worthwhile. If it's worthwhile, it's probably not easy. I mean, there's no truer words.
That's right.
It's just not. And then if you are with someone and it's worth building with them, you get up every day and you go, I choose this person today.
That's right.
It's not like a one-time decision. It's come hell or high water. Hell or High Water. That's the other one you got to watch. It's No Country for Old Men or Hell or High Water. Okay. Watch those, and we'll get your West Texas.
We've come full circle, haven't we?
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell men, let's spell it out. Like, don't send messages. YUD. What are you doing? Like, let's start composing sentences again.
Okay, and I also think this. I think that if you're a grown man and you use emojis, unless you're like a grandpa, I think that's totally not.
Well, here's the thing, though.
No, you got to make a rule. Okay. You and all the gals got to get together and make that rule.
I think at the end of the day, men should start picking up the phone instead of texting.
Well,
and I think a lot is lost over text, so men fill in sentiments with emojis to try to express what is lost over text. But my solution is emojis are okay, but the best thing to do is pick up the phone and call a girl.
Yeah, I think that a lot of girls would disagree with you. I think that if the guy said, hey, I'm going to call you in 10 minutes, is that cool? That would probably go over. I know girls women, gals, ladies, whatever. They're like, oh, God, I don't have time for this right now, and it stresses them out.
Well, then they're not really open to dating and really don't want to.
That's a really good point.
Because, by the way, even Bill Clinton had time for a relationship in the Oval Office. If people want to date somebody or want to date, they'll make themselves available.
Yeah, he sure did, man. Several, by the sounds of it. Several. Oh, no, time. You make time for things that are important to you, a priority to you, and you make excuses about things that aren't actually important to you.
Not always. Single mom is different, right? I won't get a sitter and I won't go out and I won't go on a date when I have my kids. So my schedule's a little bit more difficult to navigate.
Well, no, but we're getting some good knowledge from a top flighter, from someone who's a public figure who does big numbers in business and who isn't afraid of some dissension, right?
I'm sure I made some enemies with some girls here on this podcast, but I think this is a conversation we need to be having. Although, did you think we were going to get into dating on this podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I always try to nudge it that way because I think that everybody's perspective it helps me understand a little bit more what the heck's going on. Because I just can't relate with this mealy-mouthed, weak. I just can't. Yes. I don't speak that language. I don't speak the language of lazy, not ambitious, and have no aspiration for my life. It's like you be talking Greek to me. I don't know what you're saying. I know they wrote one of the books of the Bible, the Old Testament or the New Testament, in Greek, and the other one in Hebrew. That's about all I know.
Women need to stop settling, and then we won't have weak men.
Yeah, so then what? Loneliness takes over, and then you just settle for what's right in front of you, or desperation?
Maybe. I mean, don't settle. I mean, honestly, I could never get married again. I'd be okay. I also have I have a lot of infrastructure in place, and I already have the kids piece, right? Like, I'm fortunate to already have that, so I'm not trying to solve that with somebody.
Right.
But I mean, more women are. I'm not advocating for this, but more women are freezing their eggs, and it's giving them more options to sit there and be patient and find the right person, right? God has your person out there, but women just need to stop pulling themselves off the market for situationships and for things that are not truly.
Is that a thing?
It is.
A situationship?
Yes. Women like men, and they're in this dynamic that isn't quite committed, but they have taken themselves off the market. They've stopped dating other guys. even though they don't have not had a commitment from somebody they're seeing. And this is just creating this weird nuance of
so the dude's seeing other
oh,
people,
yeah. Oh yeah.
But old girl is
And it's just that's part of the dynamic that we're facing right now, and kind of this.
That's not a win-win.
That's not a win-win.
Or a partial lose.
And by the way, if a guy is dating you and dating somebody else, then maybe you should also be doing the same, because until you're off the market, you're on the market, right?
Yeah, I mean, allegedly. I think there's groups on Facebook where you can go if you are a gal and you're wondering if the dude who you're talking to is a sleazeball. I think you can go join these private groups and be like, this guy, what are y'all's thoughts? And if he's got a rep, then everybody throws in.
But also, intimacy should wait till you're in a serious relationship or married.
Well, that complicates everything, right? Because it's become this casual, it doesn't mean anything. Well, actually, the science says it does. It does. The endorphin release, the connection, the science.
More so for women than men.
Right.
Women get attached really quickly.
For sure. Even if they say they won't, they do. Yeah, that's music to most dudes' ears. Oh, right on. Yeah, no strings attached. No. And that's not really ever the way it is.
No.
So, I mean, just understand things for the way they are, not how maybe you want them to be. And maybe if that's how you want them to be, you should just probably...
Well, then just take yourself out of that place where you're looking for a relationship.
Yeah, let's just stick to the bar hopping, man. I mean, it's a, you know... It's a sticky wicket, man.
It's a sticky wicket.
It is. It's
always better to act like a lady. You will never regret it.
Yeah, I like the gentleman part too. I like I think on social media, if you're having trouble in your personal life, you should probably keep that off social media.
Oh, yes.
I think it looks really bad and really immature and really emasculine when a guy goes on there and just spills everything out on...
Who are you following on social media?
I don't,
Nobody on my feed is doing that.
I don't know. I see and unfollow. There's some of the younger dudes are real free and easy with that. And I've been in the coaching scene for a while trying to help younger dudes see the better way, and that's just the way it is. It's everything is out there all the time. There's nothing held back. If it's anybody's business, it's your business, because I'm going to put it out there, and you're just like, bro.
And that's just somebody that needs to do their own work, internal work, right? They need validation on the decisions that they make on an external level. So it's a lack of confidence, and somewhere along the line, they don't feel validated in decisions and confident in the decisions they make.
See, I think what we do with you is probably redirect you away from the political scene, start you a YouTube channel, and you can start giving relationship advice.
Oh gosh, well I'm single. And divorced. Like what kind of good relationships?
The best coaches.
Okay.
They can teach, but they can't do. That's what they say.
Yes, I think honestly, we all are so busy. Just be intentional with your time and who you allocate your time to.
And if you were giving advice to the ladies who watch this, who are thinking about starting their own thing, thinking about changing directions on their careers, but they're like, man, I want to go try commercial real estate, or I want to try like restoration contracting, because the ladies in my business absolutely crush it. They just destroy. It's unbelievable how well they do. What would your advice be to them if they're a little afraid about it, or about the energy and the dynamic and the vibe getting into a male-dominated industry? Do you have like specific advice for them?
I would say if there's an opportunity that presents itself, and it's something that you've always wanted to do, I say it's scary to take chances, but you'll always regret not taking them. Right? It's scary to put yourself out there. If you are wanting to make that leap, but you're not quite sure if the industry is the right fit, give yourself 2 months and go do an internship, right? Get in the weeds with a business, with an industry, and see if you like it. In the real estate world, we have the Real Estate Council, and they have young guns. You don't even have to be a member in commercial real estate. Go to these like networking events within the industry before you try to jump in, and start meeting people that are your peers and see what they have to say. Go shadow some folks. That way you know that when you're jumping in, you already have a slight foundation. You already connect with peers, and you know that you know what you're getting into to a degree.
And I doubt that you've ever regretted being too knowledgeable about a deal before you went in. Like, be educated, know what you're talking about, do your homework, figure out, do they have kids, this, that. And finally, Sarah Lamb, because you've said getting into the weeds so many times,
gosh.
when will weed be legal in the state of Texas?
That is a good question. It is not.
And why isn't it now?
It is not a priority for this legislative session.
The amount of money that it would bring in.
We still don't even have legalized gambling. Texas at the heart is still a very conservative state. There is some limited amount of medicinal marijuana that's allowed for certain cases. I think if we see anything, it will be on the medicinal level, but I don't see that happening in the next 5 or 10 years.
Do you think gambling will be legal before, like casino gambling will be legal and built up before
that's also
cannabis?
something that this ledge is trying to reconcile with right now. I think what you're going to see is...
Can we throw a couple casinos up and get rid of the tollway?
So there's...
Come on now.
Right.
Is that an oversimplification?
Yes, right in the neighborhoods. That's what everybody wants. 24 hours, 7 days a week gambling facilities.
I was thinking like out in like Forney or like Mineral Wells.
You would just want to... I like Forney. You're just going to go ahead and...
I like Forney too.
You're going to go throw a big casino in the
not
middle
a gambler.
of Lance Goodin's congressional district? I don't think he's going to agree with that.
I don't know. I mean, I think the streets are paved with gold where just look at Oklahoma, man. They're just burgeoning.
I think what's going to happen is I sat on the zoning board of adjustment for the city of Dallas. We heard relief cases where, for example, if the city decided to revoke a tenant's certificate of occupancy, they could appeal to our board and we'd make a decision on, was the city right to pull the occupancy letter or should we rule in favor and grant relief on behalf of the tenant? We had a card room case come on in front of our board, several, because private card rooms are actually illegal in the state of Texas. They must fall under the safe harbor provision, which means that there's 3 pillars of that safe harbor provision to avoid prosecution. They must be a private club, so it's not open to the public. The house cannot take a rake, so they can't take any hand that's played. They cannot take a piece of what is played, and then equal winnings or the opportunity to win or lose is an equal chance made by all, right? So currently we are seeing those card rooms that are allowed. City of Dallas has revoked COs and we're now in appeals case. It's gone to district court. It's been appealed then further. So I think ultimately we'll probably see it appear at the Supreme Court of Texas in the form of card rooms. And the Supreme Court of Texas will rule whether it's a legal use. And if that's ruled legal, then I think we'll see shortly after the legislative session allow gambling. If the Supreme Court finds that it's not legal based on the state constitution, I think it's going to be a longer fight. And I think we'll probably see something maybe in 10 years, if at all.
Do you think they're going to find that it's...
It's a tough one.
Can you feel the breeze blowing either way?
The Constitution allows for private card rooms, and I think the intention was that you and I can go play poker together in a garage with some friends and gamble money, and we wouldn't, have the police raid us. Now the question is was that meant on a larger scale under the provision of a private club or private entity, and are these businesses taking it and outside of the intended intention of the Constitution? I don't know. It could go either way.
Interesting. Yeah, it just seems like growing the tax base would just help everything. I understand the upshot of that, or the argument from one side is that crime will increase and so on and so forth. Crime
and gambling and alcoholism and the deterioration of family.
Everyone just goes to a different state that lives here and does that anyways.
It's kind of, we have our blinders on. I don't go to other states. I think I've maybe gambled once in Las Vegas on my 21st birthday. I don't understand it, and I think that just throwing away money
makes no sense.
I mean, sometimes I'll buy a lottery ticket. That's probably the extent of my gambling.
Lottery tickets make good stocking stuffers. That's about the only time I ever buy them.
Yes. Sometimes when it hits $1 billion, I'm like, okay, I'll go spend $20.
I'll give it a shot. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, connect with you, especially to get with you about commercial real estate, what email should they hit?
So slam@theretailconnection.net.
Awesome.
Or my political email is sarah@sarahlamfortexas.com.
Sarah, thank you for jumping on.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you, yeah. That was awesome. Thank you very much to Sarah for her time. She's a busy lady. It was very, very cool to hear about her story, about her mindset, about her attitude toward bettering her community, toward making the world a better place where she is with what she has. Very inspiring stuff to sit down with people like Sarah who are living that passionate do-it-yourself life, who are refusing to settle and take that average life. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Hit me up anytime on Instagram at Jess from the Northwest. If you know somebody else who should jump on, we've got some very exciting guests in the future. Very exciting, just like Sarah was today. Always always, welcome your comments. Love to know what you think. Please like, subscribe, drop a comment below if you'd like, and we'll see y'all next time.